My name is Bill Maitland. I'm an assistant state attorney in the Jacksonville State Attorney's Office. Unofficially, I'm the chief prosecutor, but that could change any day. I've just made the decision to bring a black cop to a grand jury for shooting 3 men breaking into his home, one in the back while he was running away. This case could destroy my career, but how could I look at myself in the mirror if I don't see it through? To make matters worse, the woman I was falling for has gone back to her husband and child in France. And of course, I'm still haunted by my ex-wife leaving me for a younger, more attractive man. Let's just say the past 6 months have been hell, and I'm not sure if the worst is over or yet to come. Friday, March 22nd, 1985. 6 p.m. I was deep into my sociology homework, one of the necessary subjects for pre-law, when Mark Cumber knocked on my bedroom door. I lay on my bed trying to juggle 4 books, take notes, and prepare for a final exam that seemed impossible to ace. Since getting out of classes at 3 p.m., my eyes were starting to blur. I was glad for the break, even though I knew I didn't have time to join Mark and the other guys who shared our off-campus apartment on Friday nights. Living in the dorms had been tough for me. It was cheap, but filled with too many distractions. Florida was known as a big party school, which made studying hard. I enjoyed socializing, but noticed that most of my roommates came from wealthier families or had scholarships. They could take chances with their grades and rely on their families for support if things went wrong. I didn't have that option. Mark, I really can't. I need to catch up on a month's worth of studying in just a few weeks. You guys can go without me, I said. Mark, a tall and skinny guy with a unique hairstyle, looked at me with a knowing glance. It's not just a regular hangout, Bill. Trust me. You'll want to be part of this. Curious, I raised my head. Behind him stood the most captivating person I had ever seen. It was a warm March day in Gainesville, and she wore red shorts and a loose white shirt, her smile brightening the room. Debbie Bascom, a remarkable 19-year-old sophomore at the University of Florida, was where I was pursuing my law degree. I had seen her on campus, often with athletes or guys who drove flashy cars. One night, she became the center of attention at a party where I was working part-time. I felt a need to step in when things seemed off, which landed me in a tough spot. Afterward, I felt a bit foolish. I almost got hurt trying to protect someone who was known for being sociable. She never came to visit me in the hospital, didn't call, nor even sent a card. I told myself I didn't do it for recognition. I would have helped her even if she wasn't so attractive. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. I found myself looking past her, then raised my eyes to meet hers, quickly shifting my gaze somewhere else. She was a tall girl. I managed to look at her face again. Hi. Hi. I know who you are, Debbie. I've seen you around. A hint of embarrassment crossed her face for a moment. I'm sorry, but I don't remember meeting you. You haven't. We don't really know the same people. I just meant I've noticed you a few times, and even though I felt silly saying it, I added, You're hard to miss. Her smile returned, brightening the room. Thank you, Bill. She glanced down at the cluttered bed, which was filled with books and papers, and asked, Could I sit down for a moment? I looked around. The 2 chairs I had were also piled with stuff. There wasn't much space in my room to move around. I quickly pushed aside some books and papers behind the bed. She sat on the edge of the bed, folding one knee under her. Up close, she was even more intriguing. Her eyes were a unique shade of blue-green. She looked at me intently, and I felt very uncomfortable, like a bug on a board. I tried to think of something to say, but my mind felt blank. I saw Mark give me a thumbs up, smile, and then he disappeared. I'm kind of hurt. I looked at her, confused about what she meant. You save a girl from a terrible situation, and then you just leave her. I thought you would at least call, but I heard nothing from you. It's been over a week since you left the hospital. Do you save so many people that you forget about them? She smiled while she spoke, and I found myself smiling back. No, I don't usually do that, but I don't think you know much about me. I'm on a partial scholarship, working and managing a full course load. When I went to the hospital, I lost almost a month. Finals are coming up soon, and I can't afford to fail. I have been studying hard and attending classes, and she leaned closer, focused on me. I lost my train of thought. And? She smiled softly and noticed where my eyes were looking. And, I know you have a busy life. You have a full social life. I didn't want to bother you. Bother? Her smile faded. I tried to sound casual, but my feelings slipped through. If you wanted to see me or thank me, you would have visited me at the hospital. You didn't come, I thought. Maybe you didn't want to revisit that night. My mother told me about your injuries and how you might feel shy about it. I just assumed. I never came to the hospital? That... She interrupted herself, taking a deep breath. Then she said, I came to the hospital 3 times before I met your mother. She made it very clear that she didn't want me near you. I managed to sneak into your room twice when she wasn't there just to be with you for a while. Then one day she walked in and found me there. She told the nurses to keep me away. She was family, and they had to listen to her. When I heard you were awake, they wouldn't let me talk to you. I have a friend who works there, and he told me when you left. I thought you would call me. I waited. When you didn't call, I decided to come over. I felt bad for assuming things. I thought she didn't care about someone like me who ended up in the hospital. I'm sorry, Debbie, I didn't know. My mom isn't a bad person, she's just very protective. We lost my dad when I was young, and she has never remarried. It's just been the 2 of us. I think she saw you as a silly girl who almost got her son into trouble. Debbie, You don't need to deny it. That's what she told me when she found me in your room the first time. Do you feel the same way? I shook my head. I can't judge how you live your life. You're an adult. Her voice got louder. Do you think I went there wanting to be hurt? That I wanted those people to take advantage of me? The person I thought cared for me didn't. She lowered her voice. I like going to parties. I enjoy being with people. I like having connections. But I'm not the type to just be with anyone. Somehow, I found myself holding her hands. Her eyes looked bright. That's not what I meant. I'm not judging you. If I thought you wanted to be in that situation, I wouldn't have stepped in, but I believed you didn't want it, and I was right. I'm glad I stepped in. I'll always feel that way. It was the right choice to help. Do you always make the right choice? I try to. She was close enough that I could smell her natural scent. It wasn't perfume, it was just her. I felt a strong urge to lean in, to form a bond that was deeper than words, but I held back. She was thankful for my help, but I sensed that if I took a step closer, things might change between us. She had come to express her gratitude, and I felt a bit overwhelmed. She moistened her lips, and I felt both excitement and nervousness. Then she stepped back and looked around my simple room. You saved me, but seem to put yourself at risk, Bill. That doesn't seem fair. It's okay. No, it isn't. You shouldn't face consequences for helping me. She picked up a sociology book, looked it over, and said, You have Williamson's class? Yeah. I took his class last semester and got an A. I can help you catch up and likely get you an A on the final. What other classes are you taking? I told her about my classes. I haven't taken math yet, but I'm pretty good at it. I've done economics, and while I haven't had your literature class, I usually do well in English. Let me assist you with these, and you can likely pass everything without much trouble. 2 heads are better than 1. I can't ask you to do that, Debbie. You already have your own classes to handle. I'm ahead in everything right now. My economics class is the toughest one I have. If I manage it right with my professor, I might get some extra help. I couldn't help but smile at her, though I didn't like thinking of her dealing with challenges. You make it sound simple. She smiled at me again. You think I'm just a pretty face? I have smarts too, Bill Maitland. Yeah, I'm starting to see that. But for now, she said, getting up quickly and reaching out her hand to me, let me take you to dinner. I hesitated. I can't, Debbie. I have too much. Come on. Just take my hand. She helped me up, and for the first time I noticed how tall she was. I had to look up a little to see her eyes. It was a strange feeling standing there with her. Come with me. You need to eat something, so let me treat you to a meal at Merriweather's. After that, I can help you study. I have no bedtime, and I can stay as long as you want. Merriweather's was the best steakhouse in Gainesville, and I knew I couldn't afford to go there. I don't want you to spend that kind of money. It won't cost us anything. I dated the owner's son last fall. Too bad he's married because I liked him more than his son, but he cares about me, and he'll feed us both for free." She looked at me as if she was seeing me for the first time, noticing my faded jeans and old t-shirt. "Do you have any nice clothes? Maybe a jacket?" "I have nice clothes, but no jacket." "That's fine. He has jackets and ties for his special guests. Come on, get ready." She smiled at me. "I can look away if you want." I thought about arguing, but I knew she would probably find a way to get me out of there anyway. I felt like I was facing something I couldn't resist. The only problem was I was already starting to feel strongly for her, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for that. I still woke up feeling like she was close by. I hadn't heard from her, but I didn't really expect to. I wondered what it was like when she met Philippe for the first time after being gone. I didn't want to think about their time together after such a long wait. Trying to forget didn't help, but even though the idea of Aline with Philippe bothered me, it didn't lessen my feelings for her. I forced myself not to remember what I had told Debbie the day Aline left. What if Aline walked back into my office one day soon? What if she told me that she and Philippe hadn't been able to fix their marriage? What if I was out of work or moving to a new state, unsure of my future, while trying to keep a close relationship with my kids from afar and still missing Debbie as I tried to start fresh? Could I also bring Aline into the picture? Definitely. One thing my divorce had taught me was that a job and responsibilities weren't enough to take care of what really mattered most in my life. For me, that had been Debbie, and I let that slip away. If Aline came back, no matter how hard it was, I wouldn't let that happen again. Even though I felt emotionally drained and tired, my body woke with energy and I felt good. All the talk about the benefits of hard physical training really was true. Who knew? Even though I had been lazy while Aline was around, the fitness I had built up remained. Why hadn't I thought about this when I was with Debbie, who had encouraged me to go to the gym and even offered to join me? She wanted it, and even though I knew it was partly for herself, it was also for me. Now, I couldn't remember what had seemed so important that I never found the time to go. People often say that regret is not helpful, so I tried to concentrate on William Sutton and Sean Smith and the details of the office, managing to set aside thoughts of Debbie and Aline for a bit. Getting ready to present before the grand jury is not easy, especially for a tough case like Sean Smith's, so I spent a lot of time preparing. While we had done a lot of work on Sutton, actually filing the charges and setting up the case was a different story. I had 2 assistant attorneys helping me, but I was going to be the one in front. If it didn't go well, I didn't want to hold back the 2 young attorneys just starting out. I thought it might be best if I took the blame. We had just begun the long process of filling out legal documents, but Sutton's lawyer, Barry Mann, a well-known attorney from Jacksonville, was already quickly responding to our requests. I understood his plan. He aimed to delay things in the hope our main witness would not be able to testify before the trial. A live witness in court is always more convincing than written statements. Then I remembered the troubling news about trials related to drug cartels. There had been reports of serious problems, including threats made against the lawyers involved in those cases. Recent talks included the option of moving the trial to a safer location after some alarming events raised concerns about safety and the fairness of the legal process. This situation was heavy on everyone's minds. Prosecutors across the nation had learned a bit about Mexican culture. They discovered that El Degüello was a trumpet tune tied to a battle in 1836. The term meant no mercy and was linked to the idea of complete harshness. The cartel members who had targeted the prosecutor's family clearly understood this meaning. The cartel had acted on rumors that the case was moving to Idaho, making prosecutors and law enforcement around the country understandably worried. It had been a long time since organized crime felt brave enough to attack law enforcement officials. This cartel had essentially declared war on all law enforcement in the U.S., and so far, they seemed to be winning. The DEA and U.S. authorities were on high alert. Special operations teams were sent to Mexico, but there was so much corruption that it was hard to know who to trust. Often the police we needed were linked to the cartel, making it harder to tackle them. This situation was very serious, and the lawyers were fully aware that trouble was on the horizon. The American government could not retreat in trying to bring the cartel leader to justice, as he was linked to many deaths in both Mexico and the U.S., while the cartel was determined to block his trial. Like many others in my position, I found myself torn between wanting to take the case and hoping it would go to someone else. I had decided that if the case came to me, I would make sure to involve Jimmy, who was married to Debbie's younger sister, Clarice. I knew he had ties to special operations, and I wanted someone reliable from our group to look after Debbie and the kids if needed. The routine of my job helped me. It kept me focused on my work without getting lost in thoughts about Aline, Debbie, or the past, and it helped me worry less about what was to come. At 11:45 a.m., Reverend Montgomery arrived. Cheryl barely had time to tell me, "Mr. Maitland, Reverend Montgomery is here to see you." If it were a cartoon, you might picture steam coming from his ears. He was clearly upset and gave me a look that seemed meant to frighten me. "I don't know what you've done to get Edwards on your side, but I want you to know the community will not stand by while you make false claims against a good police officer, Maitland." "Hello, Reverend. It's good to see you today." He took a deep breath. "I am extremely upset, Mr. Maitland, and you know why. Despite what people in the community and the police think, you have decided to keep investigating in a way that seems likely to harm a good officer. You know as well as I do that this could ruin his career. What's worse is that you have somehow pressured the state attorney to overlook his duties and not ask you to step back. I don't know how you've managed to influence him, but it must be very strong to make him go against his own best interests." I tried to stay quiet and calm. "Reverend, I'm sorry for upsetting you. The last time we spoke, I said I hadn't made a decision about Officer Smith's case. I have now. I'm just sharing the facts with the grand jury and letting community members decide how to handle it. You should feel good about the decision coming from a group of people, not just one person." He looked at me for a long time before sitting in one of the chairs, only to get up again quickly as if he couldn't stay still. "You really are good at persuading people," he said, dropping his serious tone for a moment. "You use the right words and tone, but I'm not some unaware reporter or community supporter. We both know you are leading this, and whatever happens to Smith will reflect on you. You're overestimating my role, Reverend. I think all that talk about being the angel of death is getting to you. It's quite possible that the grand jury will choose not to indict Smith. They usually hesitate to charge police officers without strong evidence of wrongdoing. This time they won't, will they, Mr. Maitland? You think you can do this because you have your boss worried. You must have something on him, right? But let me offer you some advice. If you go through with this, you should expect protests in front of this office every day until things change. Our community will certainly show their unhappiness, not just at your work, but also at your home. The media will cover it, and everyone in the neighborhood will be aware of what's happening." I stood up from behind my desk. Montgomery noticed the change in my expression and took a step back. "Are you really suggesting that you might put my family in the spotlight to scare me away from this case?" I asked. "Not at all," he answered with a small smile, knowing what he meant. "You know we have the right to share our views wherever we want to encourage you to think twice about this case. The Constitution guarantees our rights to free speech and assembly. If it causes trouble or fear, that's not our issue. Like you said, Reverend, you are quite persuasive. But we both understood the effects of loud protests, media trucks everywhere, and the unexpected situations that can arise at these events. And if something happens to my family, you won't be surprised, will you?" I said. "I don't know any more about that than you do about Sean Smith being charged and likely found guilty," he replied. We looked at each other for a moment. "I don't want this, Maitland. I have my opinions about you, but I don't want your ex or your kids to suffer because of what you're doing to Sean Smith. However, if you move forward with this, they will be drawn into it. Please don't take this to the grand jury. I'm not a bad man, Maitland, no matter what you think. I don't want to feel guilty if anything happens to them. We seem to be stuck here, Reverend. I will make sure my ex-wife and kids are safe when you start your protests. I will use all the resources available to protect them from any threats if you find them." I tried to use my toughest look and imagined him in a tough spot. "Maybe I'll confront you. Maybe I won't. You'll have to ask yourself, like in that old Clint Eastwood movie, do I feel lucky?" As he moved to the door, he replied, "I could ask you the same thing, Maitland. Do you feel lucky?" Once he left, I sat thinking for a while before heading to Edward's office. Myra told me, "He's inside, Mr. Maitland." I walked in. He was seated at his desk, looking through some papers. I stood quietly until he finally looked up at me. He appeared worn out and didn't have his usual energy. Today, he looked every bit of his nearly 60 years. "I just spoke with the Reverend. Thank you for not taking me off the Smith case." He shook his head. "Why thank me for something you forced me into? You know that's the only reason I'm letting you continue. Myra said you might just fire me. Why didn't you—" He set the papers aside and leaned back in his chair. His easy smile was gone. "I took some time to think it over. If I let you go ahead, I'll face opposition from the police and the community. If I fire you, the media will probably turn against me. In the end, people who don't read beyond the headlines will only remember I'm just another corrupt politician cutting deals. They won't recall the details, only the negative impact. That's what hurts my reputation. Oh, don't get me wrong. I still know I'll face challenges in next year's elections, but I believe letting you go ahead might be a bit less harmful than firing you. I believe you will follow through on any promise you make." "I understand you, Bill. I stayed standing. I see that you disagree with me, but I think you're mistaken, Austin. The police and the community might be upset with you, but you have a year to fix things. The news will show you as a strong prosecutor willing to fight for what's right. Calvin Coolidge became president even with opposition, and Thomas Dewey almost succeeded as a dedicated crime fighter. You're still in the game." Edwards gave me a small smile, then looked down at the desk. I suspected he was thinking about one of those private polls to see how people viewed him. "You might be right, Bill, but I have my doubts. I don't think you understand your reasons for doing this completely." I looked at him with interest. "I know you feel you're acting out of a deep sense of right and wrong, trying to take the right path, but you may not see yourself clearly. No one can. From where I stand, I think you've never really moved on from Debbie. You were close to losing your way, and I kindly sent you on a trip to help you find your balance again, only to discover you fell for someone else who helped you put your life back together. Now, she's gone too." There was a mix of pity and concern in his eyes. "You're still struggling. Your mind isn't clear, Bill. It seems like you might be trying to hold yourself back like you did before. You might want out of a life that has let you down. Perhaps you're looking for a push out of your comfort zone to find a fresh start." "I can see how it might look that way, Austin, but I don't think that's true." He rubbed his chin in thought. "It doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong, Bill. I'm going to give you a chance for a new beginning." "You're letting me go anyway, after what you just said?" "No, go ahead with the grand jury. Complete the process. Once that's done, in a reasonable amount of time, I want you to resign and find a new job. Maybe a few months into the new year, aim for spring. But I don't want you here by next summer. That will give enough time to show you're not leaving because of Smith. And," he added, "I'll give you any references you need. You are a great lawyer. Besides, the angel of death can likely get any job he wants, whether in prosecution or defense. It might be good for you to spend some time on the other side. It pays better and could help you get back some personal time." We sat quietly for a moment. "Are you sure this is what you want, Austin?" "Yeah, I was upset, but I knew what I was getting when I chose you. It's just that I don't think I want you here anymore. It might not be wise, especially if I have challenges next November. I'd see you every day and might blame you. That wouldn't be easy for either of us." Finally, I said, "Okay, Austin, I'll start looking." As I walked by Myra, I noticed her working on her computer. She looked up at me for a second, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't meet my gaze. She understood. I sat in my office for a few minutes when I returned. I didn't lock the door, but I asked Cheryl to keep anyone away if she could. I leaned back and turned my chair to look at the pictures on the wall, the plaques, the proof of a decade spent as a prosecutor. The kids were young when I took this job. Debbie and I had a strong marriage. It felt like a different era. Now everything was changing. I wouldn't stay here. I realized that the moment Edwards told me my time was up, which meant, in a way, I would be leaving the kids behind. I hated that. I'd be leaving a job I once loved, and now liked a bit less. I'd be leaving Debbie. I might be able to start healing if I didn't have to see her every day and think about all the years we had together. The intercom buzzed. "You have a visitor." She didn't say who it was. I didn't turn around. "Hello, Bill." "Hello, Debbie. What brings you here?" "I had a moment. Can we talk?" I turned to face her. It struck me again how she looked. Women shouldn't look this good as they near 40. How did she do it? Talk. I just wanted to ask if you could be careful. Careful? I've heard about the Sean Smith case. There's a lot of talk among the police that he's losing control. They say he's been drinking and acting strangely. He's saying he might come after you. Talk doesn't mean much. He knows things are getting serious and he's scared. I understand why. He might have a 50/50th chance of getting away, but not many would risk their life on those odds. So, he's a troubled man who could be dangerous, and he thinks you might send him to prison. Pretty much. She surprised me by walking over to my desk. I moved my chair back a little. She was close enough that I could smell her perfume. I felt that familiar connection from our past. She always had that effect on me, even when things changed between us. How could I have forgotten? But I had, and now, when it was too late, those memories rushed back. I've always known more about your work than you thought. People talk. I saw memos and looked at your papers when you were not around. You never knew I did that, did you? When did you start to think I was just an ordinary person? I never thought you were ordinary, Debbie. You made it easy to believe you were still my wife all those years. Only because you never cared enough to see how I was doing. You never cared to wonder where I was all those nights. I promised you that I would trust you. Trust doesn't mean you shouldn't be curious when I came home late without explaining where I had been. I wasn't doing anything wrong, but a normal husband would at least ask. You didn't even bother to ask. You said you weren't being unfaithful, and I believed you. That makes it harder. You weren't distracted by someone else. I shook my head and moved as far away from her as I could. Stop it, Deb. I don't want to go over this again. It's in the past. What does this have to do with today? I know you, Bill. Better than you realize. You don't seem to understand the dangers you should be worried about. Sean Smith is trouble. He has a background of violence. I want you to be careful. Watch out for him and make sure you're not alone. You've got investigators. Get some extra protection. Do it for your own good. She leaned closer and I raised my hand to stop her. I didn't want any tension between us. It was hard enough just being in the same room. He's scared, but he wouldn't be reckless enough to go after a prosecutor directly, especially when he knows he'd be the first person looked at. Scared people don't always think clearly, Bill. Are you trying to put yourself at risk? I felt trapped. She just wouldn't let it go, and I couldn't move forward without facing the past. Look, Debbie, I appreciate that you care. I know you're worried, which is why I didn't share everything that happens here. I didn't want you to stress about it. But really, there's no need to lose sleep over this. I've had threats before, and I'm still here. Then she took my hands and held my gaze. A simple touch shouldn't feel so strong, but for a moment, I was overwhelmed with feelings. I'm not asking for myself, Bill. I know I don't have that right anymore. But you have 2 kids who care about you. You've built a closer relationship with them, and you are a better father now than you have been in a long time. Please take care of yourself for their sake. I don't want to have to explain to them what happened to you. Not for a very long time. She let go of my hands and stepped back, then walked out of my office, glancing back at me just once. I could still feel her presence even after she left. Why did she bring someone else into my life? That question lingered, twisting in my thoughts as I tried to understand everything. And I knew I would never forget that moment, which meant there would be no future for us. Just yesterday. Saturday, June 1st, 1985. 9 p.m. I was finishing up a cold pepperoni pizza with a flat soda when the door to the room suddenly opened. Debbie walked in, her presence always strong. If I could have turned my daydreams about her into money, I could have paid for college. She took in the sight of me on the bed, surrounded by books, leftover pizza, and old magazines on the walls that didn't compare to her, smiling at me. What am I going to do with you, Bill? I guess you can take the boy out of Palatka, but you can't take Palatka out of the boy. I had mentioned that when we moved south, my mom took me to Palatka for a year before we settled in Jacksonville. She often reminded me, as if she thought Palatka was the epitome of a small town. It's Saturday night in the middle of summer and everyone else is out having fun while you're in here eating old pizza and studying alone. I could feel my cheeks turn red. Even after knowing her for 2 months, she still surprised me sometimes. Debbie, I began. Come on, Bill. Tell me you're not the only guy here who doesn't have any fun. Or are you just too busy? Has anyone ever told you that you can be rather dramatic, Miss Bascom? She waved her hands as she spoke, and even though she was joking, I felt a bit taken aback. Actually, she said, my friends say I'm good at keeping the conversation lively. I tried to think of a clever reply, but the words didn't come to me. Finally, I asked, So, what are you doing out alone on a Saturday night? I thought that was against your routine. For a brief moment, she looked like she might be disappointed, but I knew I could have been reading too much into it. I'm going to CC's place. There's a gathering for music and just hanging out. I didn't feel like going, so I thought of you and figured you'd be here. Honestly, it feels lonely without company. She stood in front of me and reached out her hand. I probably wouldn't enjoy myself tonight thinking about you here alone. Come with me. We could grab something to eat and enjoy some good company. You might even meet someone interesting and not have to be by yourself, she added. I pretended not to see her and waved my hands as if I couldn't find her. What happened? I can't see clearly. She pulled me to my feet with such energy that we bumped into each other, but it felt light and playful. She looked a little breathless, and I could feel my heart racing too. You know that's the only reason I hang out with you. You're so different. You make me laugh. Whatever it takes. I knew she didn't see it, but every word was genuine. If she liked being with me just to have fun, I was thankful. Then she shot me a playful look and said, You might want to take care of that before we get to the party, unless you don't mind standing out. 2 months ago, I never would have thought I could joke so easily with someone like Debbie, but we had become friends. It'll be fine. Besides, I want to save my energy. She smirked and replied, If you hold on to it too long, you'll surprise someone when you finally let it out. But they'll be glad. She turned to me, shaking her head with a hint of laughter. I see you as a kind, shy guy, but sometimes I wonder if there's more to you. There's more to me. She walked towards the door, and I almost reached out but stopped myself just in time. CC, or Charles Carter Winfield, was the heir to a huge tobacco fortune, with more money than I could ever imagine. Winfield was a cheerful guy, full of life, enjoying a life many would wish for. He usually had a lively crowd around him, which seemed to make him even happier. His big off-campus apartment had many rooms, including places for games and a theater, and everything else you could think of. Debbie pulled into the wide circular driveway and gave her keys to someone who would take care of her beautifully restored 1964 cherry red Mustang. We wandered through rooms where drinks flowed freely, with servers ready to bring whatever anyone wanted. There were all sorts of refreshments available, from popular drinks to more unique options, all offered by friendly staff, just some people having a good time. I guess in Winfield's world, that was the goal. I followed Debbie as she moved from room to room with confidence, clearly familiar with the place. I didn't like it, but I couldn't help but think about whether she was one of the women Winfield enjoyed being around. If she was, it didn't really matter. Winfield didn't need to convince anyone to be with him. They came willingly. We found Winfield on a long couch in the movie room, watching a film called Back to the Future, which I knew wasn't supposed to come out until next month. I thought I needed to figure out how to see it before we left. When we walked in, he turned to look at Debbie, a sheet covering him, and a beautiful woman beside him that made it clear he was feeling quite at ease. Debbie walked over to him, and he looked happy to see her. Deb, come here, he said, and she leaned closer. He looked at her for a moment, and then at me, laughing warmly. So the stories I've heard are true. I would have never believed it. It's great to see you, babe. I've missed you and your... I couldn't see her expression, but something changed in how he spoke, and he added, That wonderful smile of yours. We've all missed you. I think Ramon misses you the most. She glanced back at me, her face hard to read. Bill Maitland, this is CC. CC, this is my friend Bill. He reached out and gave my hand a strong shake. I noticed he got a little lost in thought for a moment as he gathered himself. Wow. He took a few deep breaths and smiled again. So you're the brave guy who has captured Debbie's heart. Debbie playfully tapped him on the nose, causing him to pull back a bit. CC, Bill doesn't quite get your special sense of humor. Just ignore him, Bill. He thinks it's funny to tease people. CC, let Bill take some time to see when you're kidding. Unfortunately, I wasn't sure if he was joking or serious. but it felt like the kind of joke someone from a more privileged background would say to someone less experienced. Debbie's reaction made it clear that she didn't find my humor funny. "I've heard a lot about you," I said to him, "and it sounds like it's all true. What does it take to be your friend?" He glanced at Debbie and replied, "I like him," then turned to me. "Make yourself at home, Bill. Things are pretty laid back around here. Find something or someone you enjoy and just relax." With Debbie here, I thought it would be easy to find something fun to do. She took my hand and said, "Let's go get a drink, Bill." "Later," Cece said, settling back on the couch as the lively atmosphere continued around us. I stood there for a moment, feeling a mix of emotions until Debbie gently pulled my arm. "Come on, Bill, unless you want to join the crowd." "This happens often?" I asked. "You think I know everything about it? I'm not really part of it, honestly." She began to walk away, but I gently held her arm and turned her back to me. "Debbie, let me go." I released her, but then held her upper arm again. "Why are you upset with me, Debbie? You seem close to him. I assume this isn't your first time here. Can't you tell me more about what goes on?" She pulled her arm away, but stayed where she was. "I have been here before a lot of times. CC is a good guy. There's always plenty of drinks, good food, and fun activities. But you see CC enjoying himself, and the first thing you think is that I must believe you're involved with him. Just tell me the truth. You noticed the excitement around us, and your first thought was about my opinion of you, right?" "No, well, maybe. Look, you're really interesting, and I know people would like to get to know you. Why wouldn't you want to have a good time? CC is known for hosting great gatherings, so I can see you fitting in." "But—" I paused because I saw a pained look on her face that confused me. "But why do you care what I think about your life? Why would you give me a second thought? What are we? Friends, I guess. I enjoy spending time with you, but we are nothing more than that. You and we're very different. You're like an eagle, and I'm more like a turtle. We live in different worlds. I helped you once, and you've helped me too. I suppose you must like me, or you wouldn't keep inviting me to places where I can have fun. But really, Debbie, why do you care?" "I don't know, Bill. Maybe. Because you saw me at my worst. You were there for me in moments I wish I could erase. I don't worry about what others think, but you're different. Each time I see you, I see the good in myself. And I feel. You remember when we first met? I thought you didn't want to be near me because I reminded you of things you wanted to forget. I think I was right, Debbie. I like you, and I appreciate what you've done for me, but I don't want to bring you down every time we're together. I'll call someone for a ride. You stay and enjoy yourself. Thanks for helping me out of that room, at least for a little while." I was almost at the front door when I felt someone coming up behind me. "Don't leave, Bill. I was being silly. I didn't." I reached for the doorknob and noticed people nearby, but no one stepped in. "I don't want you to go, Bill." She touched my shoulder. "You're a friend. You're the only person I can spend time with without feeling uneasy. Thanks for saying that. Don't be tough on me, you know what I mean. I value that you see me for who I am, not just how I look. There haven't been many like you in my life. I like being around you. Please don't be upset. Stay here and let's have a good time together. You can be convincing when you want to be." I turned around and she wrapped her arms around me, giving me a friendly kiss on the cheek. It felt warm and friendly. A hug from a friend feels nice, but it gets complicated when feelings go deeper. But what could I do? I was a nice guy, and we know how those stories go. So I decided to stay. We played pool, enjoyed the indoor pool, watched a movie, munched on snacks, sipped drinks, and laughed until we were tired. I loved that she liked classic comedies. It's not easy to find someone who appreciates them. "Did you ever notice that I'm quite different?" she asked during the evening. "Not really. I can honestly say I've never noticed," I answered, and we both laughed, taking deep breaths in between. At one point, I saw a guy with dark hair sitting next to us, his arm around Debbie. He leaned in closer, and I was about to speak. He looked up at me and said, "So you're the hero, huh? You don't look so tough." Debbie opened her eyes wide and shifted a bit. "He's tough enough, Ramon. I don't think you would have done what he did if you were in the same situation. He was just a stranger. He's nobody, a kid. You can't really—" "He's a man, Ramon. Being a man is more than how you look. You have to grow into that role, and you aren't there yet. You're just upset, Kara. She meant nothing to me. She was curious and caught me at a weak moment. I was upset, but that was a long time ago. This is now, just leave me alone. Kara. He reached for her, trying to pull her close. In frustration, she pushed him away, surprising him enough that he stumbled for a moment, but quickly steadied himself. He was tall and strong, standing over her. At that moment, she felt confident. "You're just a little troublemaker," he said, looking down at her with scorn. "A little troublemaker who isn't scared of you." Between them stood several people, and then CC stepped in. "Hey, let's keep things friendly. No fighting." He smiled at Ramon, then looked at her and put an arm around her shoulders. "Hey, I have a plan. Everyone who can still walk, let's head to the vans. We're going to Miami. Tomorrow you'll enjoy my dad's yacht on the bay. You don't even need to bring extra clothes if you don't want to. It's all relaxed. Come on." The crowd cheered as they moved toward a line of vans parked in the driveway. She looked at Debbie, who was glaring at Ramon. Debbie walked over and wrapped her arm around him, a bold move that caught everyone's attention. "Let's go, Bill. Just join me and stop thinking so much." He felt like saying no was just as hard as flying. A few hours later, he woke up under a tent set up on a gentle deck. A soft pillow was under his head, and he felt a light touch on his back. "Back with us?" "Maybe. I'm not quite sure yet. Let's get you some coffee and something to eat if you think you can handle it." In about 10 minutes, the ship's crew in neat uniforms brought him 2 cups of the best coffee he'd ever had, along with a delicious meal that included eggs Benedict, waffles, crispy bacon, hash browns with mushrooms, and a variety of snacks. Having grown up with little, he had never enjoyed such a spread and had developed a taste for things he couldn't usually afford. I felt like I was in a joyful place. Luckily, I had a special ability that meant I never felt hungover, no matter how much I drank the night before. Over the next few hours, the guests and CC talked and laughed together. I met some fascinating people, including some very interesting individuals, although not everyone was as wealthy as CC. At one point in the early afternoon, someone suggested swimming. There was a brief pause, but soon one brave person stepped in. Others quickly joined, and I felt a wave of distraction I didn't want. Debbie looked around and, with a determined expression, stood up and reached for my hand. I shook my head, not wanting to join them, especially with Ramon nearby, who seemed very sure of himself. Debbie gave me a look I couldn't fully understand before walking to the edge. In one quick move, she took off her outer clothing and jumped into the water. She caught a lot of attention, and I noticed how others watched her. Laughter, cheers, and happy sounds filled the area. It was clear everyone was having a wonderful time. If you're thinking they're having fun, you're right. I looked up, momentarily blinded by the bright Miami sun. As my eyes adjusted, I saw a tall brunette sitting next to me on one of the deck chairs. She had a stylish haircut, and her short hair added to her charm. She wore shorts and a light blue shirt. Her face was pretty, with nice lips, deep brown eyes, and a cute nose. "I'm sorry?" She reached out her hand for a shake, which I took, and said, "You're Debbie's friend. You probably know, but she's down there with Ramon and some others." "And you are? Why should I care about what she's doing?" "It's okay, Bill. Don't be upset. You know she's well-liked around here." "I'm Amy Sunderland." She looked at me with a serious expression. "You know she has a lot of fans, right?" I leaned back, sipping my drink, and wondered how a small-town guy like me ended up in this strange situation. "Thanks for the update, Amy, but I'm just enjoying the sun and a break from classes." She put her hand on my leg. "Don't be so defensive, Bill. Everyone here knows what happened. You stepped in to help her, and now she talks about you like you're a hero." "But don't get comfortable," she added. Debbie moves on quickly. She gently rubbed my knee. "With all this information, you must be one of her close friends," I joked. She smiled, and it was a nice smile. "We're acquaintances. Debbie doesn't really have close friends. It's mostly about her." "Everyone has their own interests, Amy. What do you want?" She smiled again. "What do you think?" I thought it over for a moment. "Lead the way." 5 minutes later, we were in a cozy cabin downstairs that felt as spacious as a hotel room. The mood was warm, and she seemed to enjoy being there. With every movement, she gasped softly and held on to me, whispering softly. I looked at her face and saw she was smiling, her gaze fixed on something behind me. I slowed down and turned to see. Debbie stood in the doorway, her expression blank. A quick feeling of guilt hit me, though I didn't know why. When I looked back, the doorway was empty. I lay next to Amy, both of us taking a moment to breathe. "It never changes," she said quietly. "Guys just can't resist her." I didn't reply. Later, when I went back on deck, I found out that Debbie had taken a water taxi into Miami with some friends for shopping. I didn't see them again until 7 p.m. when I arrived at the small airfield where CC's private jet awaited. As I stepped onto the plane, I saw Debbie sitting by the window. I paused for a moment, but then took a seat in the same row, right across from her. She avoided looking at me. For a few minutes, we sat in silence as the plane got ready for takeoff. Once we were in the air, I leaned closer and said, "If I didn't say it before, thanks for persuading me to come. I had a good time." She still wouldn't meet my eyes. "You must have posed quite a challenge," she commented. "It just happened," I replied with a smile. She turned to me with a serious expression. "I noticed you weren't being careful. If you start feeling unwell, see a doctor. You never know what you might have caught." I could hardly believe that she seemed worried. I had never seen her act like this since the first time we met. "That's funny, Deb. She seems to think a lot of you." Her face darkened. "I know exactly what she thinks of me. But let me tell you something about Ramona. He thinks he is charming. He didn't listen to me, and I had to set him straight." She looked at me again. "And you didn't want me to compare you to him, did you?" When I stayed quiet, she shook her head. "Guys often think we care about things like that. It's silly." She lowered her voice. "Look, Ramon might be popular, but it's not just about that. I really cared for him once, but he couldn't stay loyal, so I ended it." Her tone softened. "I wish we could have spent more time together. We could have had fun." She became serious again. "But I guess you had other things to do." People talk about me, but it's surprising how often others find themselves in tricky situations. If I had suggested that it would be an unusual way to go, I think she would have reacted strongly, so I leaned back in my seat. According to her, I fell asleep before we had even been in the air for 10 minutes. Of course, 5 days later, I found myself feeling uneasy and ended up at the campus health center, taking medicine and wishing I had made better choices. Debbie laughed when she visited my apartment 2 days later, noticing that I seemed a bit uncomfortable. "A true friend wouldn't enjoy seeing another friend struggle," I said to her seriously. "Just remember this next time you might not think things through, friend," she replied playfully. Summer passed quickly, and we had fun going for pizza, attending a few campus plays, and watching movies together. Most of the time, we just hung out at my place, helping each other with our studies, watching TV, and sharing our thoughts about life and our goals. Debbie was very smart, which both impressed and made me a little nervous. I knew I was good at school too, but she was one of the few people who matched my level of thinking so effortlessly. I noticed that with her charm and intelligence, she easily caught the attention of others. As summer slipped away, I did my best to enjoy every moment with her, and she seemed to enjoy our time together as well. I knew this couldn't last forever. She could easily choose to spend time with other friends and have new experiences. I often thought about asking her why she spent so much time with me, but I never could find the right words. Then came Friday, July 19th. I hadn't seen Debbie in nearly 2 weeks, which was unusual. I was busy preparing for final exams while she was spending time with her family, including a trip to Disney World. I really missed her company, the fun conversations, and those spontaneous pizza outings where we could talk about anything and everything. A few days earlier, she had called to let me know she was back in town. As usual, we didn't make specific plans. She would just come over whenever she felt like it. This time, however, I decided to take the lead. I wanted to take her out, just to enjoy an evening together, even if it didn't feel like a formal date. I had a 1969 Volkswagen Bug that my mom had bought in the 1980s, and I had kept it in good shape. I thought it would be a fun adventure for Debbie to join me in the Bug for a night out. I arrived at her sorority house, a 2-story building on Sorority Row. I wanted to park right in front, but it was Friday night and very busy. I ended up parking almost a block away. It was nearly 7 p.m. and the sun was still shining. As I walked toward her sorority wearing my best jeans and a nice shirt with clean sneakers, I imagined how it would feel to arrive as her date. Just then I saw her step out of the front door. She wasn't alone. A tall guy had his arm around her. As I watched, he leaned down to say something to her. She smiled and seemed happy. They walked together toward a white Cadillac, and he opened the door for her. I thought I recognized him. He was Owen Davis-Smith, a player on the Gators basketball team with a good chance of going pro next year. I had seen him play a few times at the games. Standing there in the soft evening light, I felt surprised. Why was I shocked? Why shouldn't she be going out on a date on a Friday night? I hadn't called her or asked if she was free. I just assumed she would be waiting for me. Before I knew it, I was walking back to my car, starting it up and following them. It was odd. She was on a date. What was I doing? I just kept my eyes on their taillights as they drove off toward the restaurant and club area in the city. The traffic was heavy but manageable as I kept up with them, my mind wandering. The Cadillac pulled into Merriweather's, which didn't surprise me. It was busy but not too full, so when the Cadillac parked a bit away from the entrance, I easily found a spot 2 cars over. From where I parked, I could see them through the windows, enjoying each other's company. I watched them for a moment as they enjoyed each other's company. After some time, they walked into Merriweather's, his arm around her. It was clear they liked being together. I thought about leaving. An hour and a half later, they came back out to the car, laughing. She playfully nudged him and smiled. He took her hand and gave her a kind hug. It wasn't a kiss, just a warm embrace between 2 friends who enjoyed each other's presence. I followed them to Bugsy's, a busy nightclub in town, where they stayed until 1 a.m. Then they went to a house on the west side of the city, near Highway 301. It was a 2-story building. He parked in a garage and closed the door behind them. Lights turned on in the living room, then in an upstairs room, probably a bedroom. After about 30 minutes, the lights went out. I sat in the dark until 3 a.m. trying to gather my thoughts. It felt like I had lost touch with reality. I tried to think about what I was feeling, but my mind was blank. This felt strange. A girl I had known for a few months went on a date with someone else, and here I was, hiding in the dark, feeling like an outsider. This wasn't like me. I had never felt this way about any woman before. I drove back to my apartment. It was 3:30 in the morning. 2 of my roommates' doors were shut, each with a tie on the doorknob. What were the chances both of them had guests while I was out? I had stopped earlier to buy a bottle of scotch. I sat in the dark, poured a shot, and took a sip. I felt tempted to lose myself in that warm and comforting feeling again, but stopped. It felt like picking at a sore that was still healing. It was a bit painful, but made it easier to ignore the strong ache just below the surface. I had thought we were friends. We laughed and joked together. Sometimes she would playfully tap or poke me when I was being annoying, but she had never hugged me like that, never held me with such warmth. She was friends with Owen, who was probably close to her in his own way. Debbie and I were. Well, what were we? Just a girl hanging out with a guy she felt thankful for, and maybe a little sorry for. But I think I always knew deep down. That's why I never found the courage to hold her hand, to share my feelings, because our friendship mostly lived in my head. The guy spending time with Debbie was tall, athletic, and had a bright future filled with chances I could only dream about. From the start, I never stood a chance, not since that night at the party. Why had she come to see me? Why had she pretended to be my friend, joking and keeping me on edge, knowing she'd never show the same kindness to me as she did to someone else? Half the bottle of scotch was gone, and Mark and another roommate, Dave, were keeping me still while 2 girls shouted in the background. My right hand hurt a lot, and my head pounded from all the noise. I was confused. My tongue felt heavy, but I managed to say, "Mark, what's happening?" Mark had my right hand pinned down. Bill, calm down, just relax." "Mark, what? Let me go." "I will, Bill, as soon as you relax. Can you do that?" I lay back and realized I was on my bed. After a moment, Mark and then Dave loosened their grip and someone turned on the light. I looked around in shock. It looked like a storm had passed through the room. The chairs were damaged, the dresser was knocked over, and everything was in a mess. There was a big hole in the wall next to the bed. Mark and Dave carefully got off the bed, leaving me lying there. 2 girls were nearby, watching me with worry. I noticed my hand hurt a lot, and I felt like screaming. I looked at it. It was swollen and red. What happened? That's what we want to know, Mark said, kneeling next to me. We were sleeping, and then suddenly things went wild in here. You had the door locked and were making a lot of noise. We had to kick it down. And by the way, you'll need to pay for the repairs. I looked at the hole in the wall and then at my hand. That was all you, Mark said. You punched through the wall, and I think you might have damaged some support beams, too. Your hand looks pretty bad. Memories started to come back. Mark, take me to the emergency room. I'll pay for the repairs. I'm really sorry. What happened, Bill? What on earth occurred? Just some growing pains, Mark. I grew up tonight. I'll explain more later. Even with all the drinks I had that night, I felt clear-headed, mostly cold. After a few tense minutes, Mark and Dave helped me up, and I walked with Mark to my car. I spent 5 hours at the Shands Teaching Hospital emergency room, where I got an X-ray and care. They told me if I was lucky, I might not have hurt my right hand and wrist permanently. I insisted on driving Mark back to our apartment. It was 9 a.m., the sun was out, and Gainesville looked green and beautiful. He got out and was about to come to my side when I said, "I'm not coming in, Mark. I'll be back in a few days, but I think I want to go home." It felt good to be alone on the road from Gainesville back to Jacksonville, driving through the small towns and countryside of Alachua County. I found myself back on the west side of Jacksonville, driving into the driveway of the small 2-bedroom house that had been my home for over 10 years. As I turned the key in the front door, it swung open. My mother saw me and gasped, then wrapped her arms around me. She may be small, but her hug felt big and warm. "Oh, Bill." "It's all right, Mom. I just want to rest." She followed me to my old room, which she had kept just as I left it. I didn't even pull back the sheets. I lay down on my familiar bed and sank into the comforting dark. When I woke up, I felt confused. The sun poured in through the window. Had I only slept a few minutes? My mother was sitting beside me. "How long have I been asleep?" "It's Sunday morning, Bill. You've slept for over 24 hours. I rolled onto my back and lifted my cast to see if it still hurt. "Why don't you ever listen to your mother, Bill?" I looked at her, curious. "I was trying to protect you. I knew she would hurt you, and she has. She will again if you go back to her." I just stared at her. "You kept calling her name. I knew you were thinking about her, and I was worried. She's enchanting, and I knew you would want to see her again, but she isn't good for you." I lay back and took a deep breath. My heart was racing, and I was still here. I had survived a tough night. I hoped it would be the hardest night I would ever face. "We're done, Mom. No more warnings." I spent 2 days in Jacksonville before returning to my apartment. It was strange doing things with my left hand. I couldn't write well, and driving was hard, but I managed. Then she called. On the following Friday, Mark peeked into my office and said, "Debbie's on the phone." "Tell her I'm not here. You haven't seen me today." "No, say I'm visiting my mom in Jacksonville." He looked at me, surprised. I hadn't shared what happened with anyone except my mother, and even that was a toned-down version. "Tell her, Mark." On Saturday, I stayed at the campus library until it closed at 9 p.m., grabbed something to eat at McDonald's, and watched a movie at the campus union. I wanted to be as unnoticed as possible and didn't get home until almost 2 a.m. Mark had a tie on his doorknob, but when I walked in, he opened the door and said, "She came by around 9 and again at midnight." "What is wrong with you, man?" "Just leave it, Mark." I avoided her for the rest of the week. I sat quietly in my locked room while Mark apologized, saying I had been acting mysterious for over a week. He knocked a few times and finally told me through the door, "It's okay, she left." He stepped into my room and said, "I'm your friend and roommate, Bill. Explain to me how any normal guy could turn her down again and again. One day, just not now." He shook his head in disbelief. "Who would have thought this would happen to you? You know it's pointless to hide, right? You can't stay away from her forever." "I can try." My attempt at hiding lasted until the next Monday. I was walking into my sociology class when she stepped right in front of me. I had to stop to avoid bumping into her. "If I didn't know better, I'd think you're trying to avoid me." I didn't look her in the eye, but stared past her to the entrance of the lecture hall. Sorry, Deb, but I really need to get in there. I can't be late. As I tried to walk around her, she moved to block my path, and I had to look up to meet her gaze. There was a small smile on her lips. Yeah, I know. They have a strict rule about being late to sociology class in the summer. I had tried to dodge this moment, but now I was face to face with it. Look, Debbie, I really do need to get to class. Don't take this the wrong way, but I have things to do and I can't chat right now. You really are trying to avoid me, aren't you? I looked her straight in the eye. Yeah, I just think it's time for us to move on from spending time together. So sharing a pizza, chatting in your room, or seeing a movie occasionally is too much for you? Then she noticed my hand for the first time and her eyes opened wide. What happened? No, it's just a little injury from an accident. Anyway, Debbie, I appreciate the time we've spent together, but it's not leading anywhere. You should hang out with your other friends, and I'll focus on my own life. It's been good, but this is where we end it. Just like that? No, I've thought about it a lot. We're very different people with different lives. It doesn't make sense for us to keep hanging out. Thanks, but let's leave it here. You didn't think about talking to me about this? About what, Deb? We're friends who enjoy being together. I like you and you like me, but we're just friends. Our different paths will pull us apart eventually. You need to be in a relationship to really break up. We were never really in a relationship. I won't avoid you, but I have my own friends and things to do that don't include you. Maybe we'll see each other sometimes. I hope you understand. She stepped back. Oh, if you put it like that, I get it. She gave me a look I couldn't quite understand, which happened often with her. See you around, friend. She walked away without looking back. When she was gone, I leaned against a wall, feeling a bit hollow inside. I didn't see her or talk to her for 2 weeks. I noticed her a few times, but she just nodded at me as she walked by with her friends. A few times I saw her friends gather around her as we walked past, but they never spoke to me. I thought things would improve with time, but I was mistaken. It was close to midnight on a Thursday, 2 weeks later. I was lying on my bed reading an old paperback of a science fiction book called Pavan, especially the part titled The Signaler. It was the saddest story I had ever encountered, about lost love and what it felt like to go on living without it. I had first read it when I was 15. Sarah Newman, who I had loved a lot, had told me she liked someone else. It took me all summer to heal, and I had read The Signaler maybe 100 times since. For some reason, it became my go-to story whenever I felt heartbroken. Being alone and believing I would always be that way, reading about someone else's sadness gave me comfort. I pictured my lonely life stretching into my 20s, 30s, and beyond. I would have relationships, and there would be women as I worked as a successful lawyer. But deep inside, there was a cold place where my heart used to be, and I thought it would never change. I knew I was being foolish, but the pain was too strong. 1,000 times I wished I had never taken that job or gotten involved in Debbie Bascom's life. Yet I had to admit that I was glad I had been there for her that night. Suddenly, the door to my room opened, and she stood there. I noticed her outfit, but it was her eyes that really caught my attention. We just looked at each other for a few minutes, and I wondered if I had fallen asleep and was dreaming. How did you... I began. I had a key made, she replied, showing it to me. What? What are you doing here? I asked. I talked to Dave the other day. He told me how you hurt your hand. When I didn't respond, she stepped into the room, knelt next to my bed, and took my hand, which was in a cast, in her hands. What happened Friday night, Bill? She asked. That Friday night. I kept quiet. Everything changed that night. What happened? Why did you react so strongly and go home to your mom, deciding you didn't want to be with me anymore? I still couldn't speak. Did you see us, Bill? Is that what this is about? I didn't see you. Were you at the restaurant or the nightclub? I didn't see anything except your friend that night. I didn't recognize my voice. And him. When you were with him in his car. You were watching us? Why? I wanted to surprise you. I got ready and went to pick you up, but after I saw you with your friend, I understood that you might not have room in your life for someone like me. You followed us. Good for you. You figured it out. Yes, I followed you to Merriweather's and saw what happened, then to Bugsy's, and finally to his place, right? I thought you were just talking about basketball. By about 3 a.m., I figured you were settled in for the night and just gave up. Did you come up and look in the window? Did you see what was happening? Did you watch us? Isn't that what people do? No, I'm sorry to let you down. I just sat outside in the dark while you were with him. I finally understood there was no us, and there never would be. It took me a while to grasp that. You mixed up your signals. But I finally got the hint. You're slower than molasses, Bill. Slower than snails, and not very sharp. In the first month or so after we met, I did spend time with other guys, but... She sat up a little straighter. I found her interesting at that moment. I started enjoying the time I spent with you. You're smart and funny. You treated me well, and I could tell you cared about me, even if you never said it. I really liked being with you, and eventually I stopped seeing other guys. I thought something would happen eventually. It had been a month, then 2, then 3 since we started spending time together, but we never really called it dating. I began to think you might not be interested in me, but then I saw you with Amy. That made me realize you were just unsure. Last Friday, Owen got in touch with me. We've known each other since I was 15. Both of us went to Forest. She looked at me with a strong expression. I enjoy being with him. He's pleasant company. He says he's different, but he knows how to connect with people, and I like that. I was feeling restless, too. It had been 3 months without companionship, not since I was 13, so since you hadn't asked me out or called, I decided to go out with him. We had a close moment, and I spent the night with him. Her voice faded away. So... I sat up in bed and looked at her. So why are you here, Debbie? Is Owen busy with his friends tonight? Why don't you believe in yourself, Bill? You act like you're nothing special. You might not have much money and you're not the most attractive guy around, but you're brave, smart, and funny. Amy said you were nice to be around, but you could have gone for me that day if you wanted to. You didn't even try. I'm just being realistic, Debbie. I know who I am. Guys like me don't end up with women like you. She looked at me with sympathy. No, they don't if they think like you do. We just stared at each other. I thought she might turn around and leave. You know, you've never made a move. You've never tried to kiss me. Women don't usually make the first move. Some might, like Amy. But most want a man to take the lead. If you want someone like me, if you want any woman, you have to take a chance. You need to put yourself out there. I like guys, but I won't just sit around waiting for someone to notice me. I'm worth more than that. She moved close to the bed without actually sitting on it and looked at me with a mix of challenge, hope, and a little fear. You may not be the best-looking guy I've been with, not the tallest, and definitely not the wealthiest. But I think you're the best guy I've ever had. It doesn't matter, though, because we won't be together if you don't find the courage to take a chance. You have to go after what you want, Bill. So, do you want me? I knew I might regret this someday and that it could lead to pain. I understood what I should do, but I did what I had always felt was going to happen, no matter what came next. I got up from the bed and reached out to her. More than anything. Friday, September 16th, 2005. How could I have forgotten all of that, Doctor? Am I really losing my mind? Teller leaned forward and puffed on his pipe. She had shared with him what had happened with her aunt and how the bitter older woman had predicted a betrayal by Bill. This prediction had shaped Debbie's feelings about her ex-husband. He breathed out the sweet-smelling smoke and felt a sense of success. He understood what had caused the problems in the Maitland marriage. Most of the pieces were finally coming together. Debbie Bascom hadn't quite figured everything out, and he wouldn't rush her. It was important for her to understand things in her own time. She needed to accept and grasp what had happened, along with her role and responsibilities and those of her ex-husband. Psychiatry was mainly about learning to cope with past actions and mistakes. It helped people accept what they had done and find a way to build a new life. No, you're not crazy, Debbie. This is a strong example of something that happens often. Sometimes memories that hurt too much are pushed down in our minds. Feelings like embarrassment, disappointment, or sorrow might fade away over time. They often come back when something triggers them. She leaned forward and clasped her hands together. I can understand forgetting what happened with Clarice, but how could I have thought that it happened to me? He took his pipe out, pressed the tobacco down, lit it again, and took a calming breath of the fragrant smoke. He wanted her to think more about her question before he answered. "You've mentioned how important your aunt was to you. She was like a second mother, a mix of mother and sister. During your rebellious teenage years, she was the person you trusted with your deepest secrets when you couldn't talk to your mother. She never let you down and was always there for you, no matter what." Debbie's eyes shone with emotion. She was a wonderful woman. I miss her now more than I did after she passed. Maybe forgetting what happened was a way to ignore how much her loss affected me. If she'd been around when my feelings for Bill started to change, I don't think things would have turned out this way. She would have encouraged me to think things through. I can hear her saying it now. She would have told me to either talk to Bill about moving on or to help him change. Teller sensed the deep feelings in her words and wondered if she had fully faced the impact her aunt's death had on her. Grief and frustration over a difficult marriage made it hard for her to handle feelings about her ex-husband during that time. "You still show how deeply you cared for her. It wasn't just about a strong emotional tie, but also about how she mirrored your life in many ways. She taught you to be proud and confident in who you are. Without any formal training, she gave you the support you needed to heal from the unkindness of older men. Women who face serious challenges in their youth often end up in tough relationship patterns that remind them of those early experiences. With her help, you grew into a strong and confident woman." He exhaled a cloud of smoke and watched her tears trickling down her cheeks. "Psychologically, you saw parts of yourself in your aunt as her marriage fell apart and she looked for comfort from other men. You knew in your mind that the problems were her own, but in your heart, you felt like a victim. She was like a reflection of your life journey." She nodded in agreement. "I understand. I shared my nightmare with you, the one where I saw myself growing old and feeling so different. It scared me. I realize now that I was reliving the feelings I had when I was looking after her. She didn't appear as bad as I had remembered, but it was surprising to see how much she had aged." Teller nodded, noticing her progress in understanding. "She was always so lively. As a little girl, I wanted nothing more than to be just like her. People admired her even if they were married. She once told me she'd never betray her husband, but there was something appealing about being noticed by other men. I suppose—" "What is it?" Teller asked gently. "That was how I was with Bill. I cared for him, and I never looked at anyone else after we got together in college, but I liked the attention from other men. I liked knowing they were interested in me, and I never thought it was wrong. That was Clarice." Teller asked a bit more. "In the tough times at the end of your marriage, when you found yourself close to other men, did you really think it was okay because Bill had hurt you first, like Clarice's husband hurt her?" She wiped her eyes with a tissue from the box in front of her. "I don't know. I've thought about it. I told him I never truly believed it. Not really. But I'm not sure. Do you think I secretly believed it all along, and that's why I felt so angry at him?" "I don't know. What do you think?" She smiled. "You know, that's the first time you've talked like a typical therapist, Dr. Teller." He laughed. "I know. I couldn't help it. To answer your question, it's possible that doubts about your husband's honesty might have made you feel angry, even if you didn't want to believe it. Especially since, just as you identified with your aunt, you likely saw Bill as her husband." She looked worried. "Maybe, but somehow, I don't think that's enough to explain how I feel sometimes." "You might be right, Debbie. Why don't you think about it until our next session? Try to find other reasons for this strong, persistent anger." He wondered if she would figure it out herself. She was getting close. "There was something else I wanted to talk to you about, Doctor. We have a few minutes left in this session. What would you like to discuss? I know we talked about this before, but I appreciate your help. I'm not feeling sick, and I feel much better about myself and my life now. It's just that I can't help wondering what the point is in going much further. Even if I find out why I was so angry at Bill, what good would it do?" She rubbed her hands together, showing her uncertainty and stress. "Even if I understand why I felt so upset and wanted to leave the marriage, the truth is I'm already gone. Our marriage is over. Sometimes I think he hates me, and I can't blame him. If he had treated me the way I treated him, even if I believe he wanted out first, I would never forgive him. I feel like the only emotion I have left for him is guilt. Sometimes I catch a glimpse of the feelings I once had for him, but they are just brief moments. So, what's the point of figuring out why everything fell apart? I told you before, Debbie, that you can end these sessions whenever you want. I believe you will eventually come to understand the feelings you have for your ex-husband. It can be complicated, but I think you will also see what led to the problems in your marriage, and he played a part in that too. What you learn about yourself and Bill won't change what happened. The past is the past. The pain you both feel won't go away. Your marriage is over, but understanding why things went wrong might help you build a better relationship with him in the future. You have 2 children together, and there may be grandchildren someday. You will be a part of each other's lives for a long time. No matter what happens between you two, you are still young. You will love someone else again. You might have more children and start fresh. I believe that if you understand what led to the end of your marriage, it will help you create a new and better life. She paused for a moment. Thank you, Doctor. You're probably right that we will always be part of each other's lives. I'm really worried about him and that officer, Sean Smith. I don't think Bill understands just how dangerous things are for him, she said. Teller held her hand gently. I know what's going on, Debbie. I think you might not give your ex enough credit. Bill Maitland is ambitious and takes risks, but my experience tells me he is not reckless. I hope you're right, Doctor, but no one is completely safe. Sometimes I worry that Bill doesn't see that. Tuesday, September 20th, 2005, 3 p.m. I have 2 accounts on my office computer. One is for work, and the other is personal. I use the work account a lot, maybe 100 times a day. The personal one, maybe once or twice a week. My mom isn't very good with computers, as she likes to say. My kids call me on the phone, and there aren't many other reasons for anyone to send me an email. Since I rarely check the personal account, I set it up to alert me when I get an email. If I'm not in the office, it will let me know when I turn the computer on. If I am in, I will get the same update. 5 minutes earlier, my phone rang, and Cheryl told me that Phil Hauser, the president of the Fraternal Order of Police, FOP union, was on the line. I've spoken to him several times over the years. He has always seemed reasonable and easy to talk to, for a police officer and union leader. What can I help you with, Phil? Do you really need to ask, Mr. Maitland? You too? It used to be Bill. He chuckled. You never know. Someone might be listening. Did you know they have your picture on some of the targets at the shooting range? Really? No, but it wouldn't shock me. Some people here are not happy with you. I'm not surprised. I've heard that Smith is quite well liked over there. Someone trying to take him to court is not going to win any support. He chuckled again. I'm not sure. I think many people around here would enjoy making things tough for you. A cop who likes wordplay. Be careful or they might ask you to leave. You probably read silently. The only reason I'm not upset by that, Bill, is that I've shared a drink with you at some state attorney and sheriff's office events, and I know you're just joking. That's why I haven't been hard on you with my team. I can't believe you're the person others say you are. I'm a nice guy, Phil, but I won't shy away from taking the shooting case to the grand jury. When do you plan to do that? I hope to do it this week, but other matters are coming up, and the jury's leaders had some personal issues at the same time. Technically, we don't have to wait for them, but they wouldn't be able to focus with all that on their minds. They've held those roles since the jury started, and they know what they're doing. They are also good leaders. I decided to wait. It will likely be next week, maybe later in the week. That gives us some time. Look, Bill, my team wants me to do something. They pay their dues and they feel like they don't always get much in return. It would be good to show them that you're at least willing to meet with us, hear us out, and maybe, just maybe, we can change your mind. That's not going to happen. You and I both know that, but they don't. I don't mind meeting with you, Phil. When and where? How about Friday at the FOP Hall on Atlantic Boulevard? We don't have any official events on Friday, so it's a good time for the officers and a few key people to meet. We can have some coffee, maybe some snacks, and you can talk to us about what's going on. Sound good? Yeah. Let me ask you something before you go. I've been hearing rumors that Smith is not doing well. He confronted me at a sandwich shop the other day, and for a second I wondered if he was going to try something right there, in front of a dozen witnesses, including some cops. My ex-wife was just here telling me I should start carrying some protection because she's heard similar things at the PD office. Should I be worried? And if he's not stable, why is the sheriff letting him stay on duty?" Phil paused before replying. He's been a little on edge, I'll admit, and drinking more than he should. He's got friends looking out for him, keeping an eye on him. The sheriff won't pull him from duty because they think it might push the grand jury to label him unfit, and that could lead to bigger problems. Another pause. "Smith used to be a solid guy, Bill. The shooting affected him more than anyone expected. He's dealt with tough situations before, but this one had hit him hard. His fiancée left him after it happened. He thought she was the one, and I don't think he's been the same since. Maybe you can understand that." The computer pinged, but I ignored it, thinking about what Phil said. Yeah, I could understand a man losing his way after something like that. And with the grand jury investigation and the civil lawsuit hanging over him, it's all weighing on him. His friends are just trying to keep him steady until this all gets resolved, one way or another. Should I start carrying protection? It probably wouldn't be a bad idea. I had almost forgotten about the email, but after I hung up, it came back to me. I logged into my account and typed in my password. There was an email from Ajardine at AOL.com. I stared at it for a while before finally opening it. "Dear Bill, I hope this letter finds you well. Paris in the fall is even more beautiful than I remembered. Jacksonville and St. Augustine and your beaches are quite different, but I know you love them just as I love Paris. I hope today finds you as happy as Philippe and I are. Being apart has made us appreciate our marriage even more. I told Philippe about how you showed me your hometown and treated me with such kindness. I will never forget the 2 weeks we spent together in your city. Philippe thinks the fleur-de-lis pendant you gave me is beautiful, and I want you to know that I wear it proudly. He said it's the kind of thoughtful gesture he expected from you. As you can imagine, seeing Andre again has brought me a lot of happiness. He is everything to me, and as I do every year, I am thinking about returning to the bonne chance. Maybe this year I will make a different choice. I also hope you have found some peace in your personal life. I don't know what decisions you will make about your marriage, but after getting to know you, I believe you will find happiness. You are not someone who will live a life without purpose. You deserve someone to share your life with, and I'm sure you'll find that person once you get through this pain. Bill Maitland, I want you to know that I will think of you often. When I wear the fleur-de-lis, I will remember our time together. Philippe also sends his regards and wants to remind you that true friendship lasts no matter the distance or time. With our warmest regards, your friends, Aline and Philippe." I didn't even notice I was crying until the letters started to blur. Wednesday, September 21st, 2005, 3 p.m. The alarm buzzed as I walked through the security booth at the courthouse. 2 bailiffs moved toward me but stopped when they saw who I was. I raised my hands and everything around me paused. The closest bailiff, an older man with a few white hairs, lowered his hand but kept his guard up as he approached. "Mr. Maitland?" I opened my coat, showing the Glock in its holster. "I have a special permit in my jacket pocket if you want me to get it, or you can take it yourself." He glanced at the other bailiff, then said, "Could I see the permit, Mr. Maitland? Slowly, please." "Of course. Sorry about that. I meant to show you the permit before going through, but I wasn't thinking clearly." I handed him the permit signed by the chief judge and Austin Edwards. He looked at it for a moment and said, "I apologize, but do you mind if I call up to the chief judge's office? This is a bit unusual, even for a prosecutor." "Go ahead," I replied, noticing the courthouse staff quietly moving away from me. Just another story to add to my reputation here. There were already rumors that some night cleaning staff refused to enter my office, calling it the Angel of Death's lair. It would have been funny if they weren't so serious. Maybe they had a point. Many defense attorneys would rather settle than face me in court, and even some of our own team members avoided sharing an elevator with me. I had asked Cheryl about it a few days ago, and she said, "Bill, you might not have noticed, but when you're not working on a case, you often walk around looking upset or serious. It's kind of a downer." I hadn't realized it. Even before my marriage fell apart, I wasn't the happiest person. The job kept me from being lighthearted, but I didn't know that my mood had shifted from serious to gloomy, and today I was probably more grim than usual. My thoughts kept returning to Aline's email. It was clear from her words that she had worked things out in her marriage and had her son back. How could I feel anything but happy for her? I wanted her to be happy, but knowing I wouldn't see her again left me feeling empty. The bailiff broke my thoughts, handing back my permit and apologizing for the earlier confusion. I assured him there were no hard feelings, and took back my belongings after going through security again. I had gotten the Glock from an investigator, the same one who saw me with Aline at the restaurant. He gave me a quick lesson on how to handle it since I hadn't used one in almost 5 years. Carrying it felt strange, but I remembered Debbie's words. I didn't want BJ or Kelly attending my funeral anytime soon. I had barely walked into my office when Cheryl buzzed me. I picked up the phone. Mitch McConnell, one of our investigators, was on the line, speaking so quickly I could barely follow. Then it hit me, and I nearly dropped the phone. Oh no! Which hospital? I quickly notified security as I left, and a driver was waiting for me before I even reached the street. He drove me to Baptist Medical Center in one of the office cars, then went to park while I headed to the cardiac section. McConnell was waiting for me in the lobby. How bad is it? I asked. Pretty bad, he replied. Pat Peterson, the officer watching him, heard him struggling and found him on the bathroom floor around 2 p.m. He was having trouble breathing and complained of pain in his right shoulder and arm. The doctor said it was a major heart attack. About half an hour later, a young cardiologist came out and confirmed what McConnell had told me. Wilbur Bell, our key witness against William Sutton, had suffered a major heart attack. They had to clear 4 blocked arteries. What's the outlook? I asked. At his age, it's not good. I'd say there's a 50/50th chance he'll make it through the night, and even lower odds for lasting more than a week. I muttered to myself in frustration. Doctor, the state attorney's office will cover the expenses. Do whatever you can to improve his chances. If you help him recover, my office will appreciate it, and that could come in handy for you in the future. Understand? I get it, but you need to know he's in bad shape, and I'm not a miracle worker. I'll do what I can, but it's going to be hard. Sometimes all we can do is hope for the best, I replied. Before leaving, I told McConnell to arrange for the sheriff's office to have security watching over Bell day and night. You really think Sutton might try to get to him in the hospital? McConnell asked. I'm not sure, but Sutton's the kind of guy who might take a chance if it could save him. He or his mom could hire someone to finish the job. Nature could do it on its own, but I doubt Sutton would rely only on that. On my way back to the office, I wondered if I was frowning again. Probably. Sutton was close to getting rid of the key witness against him, and without Bell, I wasn't sure I could win the case. It was out of my hands now, up to the doctor, the old man, and fate. It was frustrating. The only good thing was that my frustration pushed away the sadness of losing the second woman I'd cared about. So far, my love life was 2 losses. Friday, September 23rd, 2005, 3 p.m. I sat at my desk, deep in thought. Wilbur Bell had made it through the worst part, but he was still in danger. He might still not pull through, and if he didn't, Barry Mon would push for a quick trial to stop us from finding more evidence against Sutton. Not that I knew what else we could find at this point. The phone buzzed, and Cheryl said, You have a visitor. Is it who I think it is? Yes. Can you remind her we're divorced? I could hear her voice from outside my office. Could you remind Mr. Maitland, who seems to think the world revolves around him just because he's lost a little weight, that not every woman, especially one from the public defender's office, is here to swoon over him? I just sighed. Why did she have to start acting more like the woman I first liked now that we were divorced? If she kept her distance, things would be simpler. Johnny August would just file a complaint if I refused to see her, so send her in. She stepped inside and closed the door. Dressed sharply in green and white, she looked as put together as ever. Her gym routine was clearly still working for her. The outfit highlighted her figure, but in a tasteful way. I knew she was still seeing Clint Abbott, the writer, and I wondered if there was anyone else in the picture. She looked good enough that there probably was. So, what's so urgent from the PD's office? Nothing, I made it up. I stared at her. Oh, relax, Bill. I didn't come here for any other reason than to see you in action. She smiled, and I couldn't help but remember the first time we met years ago. It was that same smile. I heard you took my advice and got yourself armed. A shoulder holster, huh? I never pictured you as that type. I slowly opened my jacket, letting her see the Glock I was carrying. I had been given some basic instructions on how to use it quickly if needed. Keep it simple, the instructor had said. Just take it out, hold it steady with both hands, aim at the threat, and start firing. The Glock shoots fast, so you can empty the clip in seconds. Don't worry about being perfect, just focus on stopping the danger. Wow, she said with a grin. I guess it's true what they say, someone with a sidearm can look pretty sharp. She realized how it sounded as soon as she said it, and the grin froze on her face. My expression must have given me away, too. I'm really sorry, Bill. I didn't mean it like that. I guess we can't even joke around anymore, huh? I know, Debbie. One day we'll have to stop dancing around our past. One day. But for now, I just said, thanks. Thanks? I'm carrying this Glock because of your warning, and others echoed it too. I hope I won't need it, but if I do, I'll be ready. Thanks to you. I hope you don't need it either, Bill, but I'm glad you're prepared. She didn't have anything else to add. She turned and left, and I was left thinking about the weekend ahead and what might come. Debbie may have hurt me, and Aline had left me without much hope, but maybe things were starting to look up. There was still a chance to move forward. Friday, September 23rd, 2005, 3:45 p.m. As she entered her office a few doors down from Johnny August, she saw Dennis Leary leaning over Annette Nettles' desk, quietly talking to her. The red-haired PD laughed at something, and Debbie felt like she witnessed a moment that seemed too close for comfort. It was just a quick look, but she was sure of what she had seen. This would not be an issue if Annette were not married to a DEA agent. She had heard some concerning stories about him. He was a man to be taken seriously. Leary was one of the best lawyers there, second only to Johnny August. Debbie decided she needed to pay attention and maybe talk casually with both Leary and Nettles. While it wasn't part of her job, ensuring her colleagues felt safe was important. Thinking about complicated relationships made her frustrated. It was as if something inside her pushed her to say things that hurt Bill the most. She didn't mean her comment, but she knew how it affected him, especially when she saw his face. Why couldn't all men be easier to understand? It would make things less messy. Bill could handle her changing feelings better than the comparisons she made. This was a delicate topic for men, and her words sometimes caused pain. She understood that much of the hurt had come from her own frustrations and unresolved issues. It still left marks, even from the early days of their relationship. Bill had always been a bit unsure of himself, and in moments of anger she had struck at that. But staying focused on past mistakes didn't help. If she could just be more careful in the future, maybe one day they could get along as well as possible. At least, she thought with some relief, he was now able to look at her in a kinder way again. It had been 6 months since he could see her without thinking of their past, and she saw that as an improvement. Leary entered her office with a smile as if he had just heard something funny. Despite herself, she felt a stir of unexpected feelings. She had promised Johnny August to keep her word, and she knew he and Bill were friends. Even with her regular time spent with Clint, she felt unsure. I just wanted to share some news, Miss Bascom. Bill had given her a knowing look, making her feel a little anxious. She hoped Clint would be free tonight. And what news is that, Mr. Leary? A friend told me Bill is going to meet with some key people at the FOP tonight at their headquarters on Atlantic. Is he going there by himself? Will he be all right? I'm not sure. I doubt it, knowing Bill. Phil Hauser, the head of the FOP, will be there with other important members. I don't think Bill is in any real trouble. That's probably what they thought before stepping into a risky place. Leary's smile faded a bit, and he said, You're really worried about him, aren't you? Does he know how you feel? This office is full of mixed emotions. No, I don't have those feelings for him. He was my husband for nearly 20 years and the father of my children. Of course, I'm concerned. When is he supposed to be there? I heard around 7 or 8 p.m. Okay, thanks for telling me. And, what? Nothing, just thanks. He looked at her for a moment before leaving. She decided to put off discussing Annette until she had more information. She knew Leary was right. Bill meeting with the FOP was probably not a big deal, yet she felt uneasy. After finishing work at 5 p.m., she went to her gym, where she exercised for an hour alongside younger women who caught people's attention. She noticed the glances people gave her, but it wasn't their youth that made her uncomfortable. It was the fact that, even though she felt confident, she couldn't hold back time. The energy of youth was something she felt slipping away. Leaving the gym, she felt a bit sad. She was alone. Both BJ and Kelly were out. BJ was visiting her parents for the weekend, and Kelly was now living there full-time. She had talked to Kelly the night before, and slowly their relationship was getting better. It would get better. She took a meal from the freezer and heated it in the microwave, eating it without really tasting it. She thought about calling Clint, but for some reason, she didn't feel like it. It was Bill that worried her. He walked into a busy police station without thinking twice. Why would he do that when he could have met them elsewhere? For someone smart, he could be quite careless. She looked at the clock. It was 7 p.m. He was either already there or would be soon. She moved to the living room and turned on the television. She had considered getting rid of it because every time she watched, memories of her past life came back. Bill had been excited when she bought the TV and had it delivered without telling him. They had been in the mall one day when he saw a display for a large, impressive television. He had loved it, of course. He was already spending too much time on the couch. Their marriage had faced challenges, but there were moments when memories of their old feelings for each other hit her hard, and that day was one of those moments. Maybe it was her way of making up for old mistakes, but she loved seeing his happy face that day. Thinking back to those moments, she sat in front of the television without really watching it. At 7:30, she turned it off and grabbed her purse and keys. She walked into the garage, got into her car, opened the door, and drove out. She planned to sit outside the Union Hall and listen to her police scanner, which had channels only the police could use. She would sit there quietly, not telling Bill she was nearby. It didn't seem logical, but staying home tonight felt wrong. Friday, September 23, 2005, 7 p.m. I arrived at the one-story building, which was the Fraternal Order of Police Union Hall. The sprinklers had just turned off, and I had to step around puddles on the sidewalk. I opened the door and walked inside. The hallway led to a big room where meetings took place. I noticed a large man in uniform at the doorway. He waved at me. I thought his name was something like Smith or Jones. He was a zone sergeant, in charge of one of the 4 areas in the city for police work. He didn't offer to shake hands, but he seemed friendly enough, so I took that as a good sign. "Smith? Jones?" I asked. "Delwyn," he replied. "Steve Delwyn." "I never forget a name," I said, smiling. He just shrugged. As I entered the big room, I saw about 10 officers sitting around a table, enjoying coffee and snacks. I recognized most of them from past meetings or work. Phil Hauser was a tall, thin man who hadn't changed much in the nearly 10 years since we first met. He got up, came around the table, and shook my hand, introducing me to the other officers. "Thanks for coming by," he said, and then looked at me again. I wore a light jacket because the evenings were getting cooler. "You seem a bit on edge," he noted. "Did you bring that along because of our earlier talk?" "You and a few others," I answered. "You wouldn't need it if you weren't being difficult about Sean," said a big blond man I recognized as Lieutenant Martin from the Narcotics Task Force. "Hey now," Hauser said, but I waved him off. "He has a right to his opinion. I know many of you are upset with me right now, which is why I came to talk to you tonight. Could I get a cup of coffee before we begin?" We talked for an hour, and I went through 3 cups of coffee. 4 of the 11 officers were black, but they didn't seem angrier than the white officers. Maybe they all support each other. "I'm doing what I believe is right," I told one of my toughest critics, a SWAT commander named Myers. "I know you think I shouldn't judge another officer in a tough moment. I understand how much you care about him. But you need to see my side, too. When you're out in the field, you can't wait for guidance. You have to act based on what you think is best and hope it turns out okay. That's exactly how I feel. There is no one to tell me what to do. Austin Edwards is in charge, but I make the final choices because he has trusted me with that for 5 years. No matter what happens, I must deal with the results and be able to look at myself afterward." I glanced over at Lieutenant Martin. "I know many believe I have a personal issue with Smith, but why would I? I don't get rewards for sending officers to jail or for making news. I could probably just keep my good reputation until I retire. I didn't know Smith before all this happened. We've never had to interact. Maybe it's because you understand those kinds of situations, especially with that person who had a rough past before I helped her. I looked up and saw Smith standing behind Delwyn. The two of them quietly entered the back of the meeting. Delwyn moved aside, and I could feel the tension in the room. He raised his hands in a sign of peace. He surprised me, Phil. Phil instinctively lowered his hand, sensing the unease. Smith kept his eyes on Phil, holding his weapons tightly. Don't do it, Phil. We've been friends for a long time, but if you reach for a weapon to protect him, it could turn out badly for you. Sean, think carefully about this. If you make a hasty move, others might get involved. Just think about what could happen. Smith was fidgeting, looking nervous, the weapons shaking in his hold. Do you really think that? What if some of them are on my side? I know about this meeting, and my associates are plotting against me. It could get messy fast. The officers in the room exchanged worried looks, their anxiety clear. Everyone, please keep your weapons put away and visible. We don't want this to get out of hand. Hauser shook his head, standing firm. I can't disarm, Sean. I need my protection. If things go wrong, I'll do what I have to do. Smith's expression changed as he looked over at me. You, Mr. Prosecutor, I hear you're not defenseless. Please show me your hands clearly. I complied carefully, making sure my movements were slow and steady. Good. I wish it hadn't come to this, but you kept pursuing me. Sean, this isn't the solution, Hauser said. You're not thinking straight. There are still options available. This situation doesn't have to control your future. I'm not going anywhere. He is, Smith said, his resolve strong. This ends now, and you're all going to help me. That's not going to happen, Martin replied, stepping forward. We can't be part of this. You need to find a different way. Do you remember 5 years ago when we confronted that dealer in Avondale? You were the first to enter when he pointed that thing at you. Luckily, it malfunctioned, and I moved you out of the way just in time. I would have taken the risk for you because you are my brother, and we always support each other. After this is done, are you going to blame me? Ending my life won't change anything. I've always had your back. Martinez, your wife would have left you if she ever learned about what happened. I took the blame and said it was my fault, which cost me my own relationship. But I did it for you. Delwyn shook his head. I've been there for you, but this is too much. It won't end well. The police radio Hauser carried crackled with voices, just as the radios held by Martin and Myers did too. Hauser, come in. Please respond. Smith looked around the room. Turn off the radios. No one moved. Why not? Smith said, responding to Delwyn's comment. There are 11 officers here, 12 including me. We are the leaders. If we all tell the same story, they can't break it. Will any jury believe 12 officers are lying? I have proof they can't trace to us. He came here to talk to you all, and when I tried to calm him down, he suddenly lost control and threatened me. People will trust what I say. They know he has been unstable since his marriage ended. That's why he went after me. He told me in front of everyone that I was just like the person who took his wife away. I was just caught in the wrong place. Honestly, people will back me up. Hauser shook his head, looking doubtful. No, Sean. This is too risky. Even if something happens to him, we won't betray our principles to help you. The radios continued to buzz with calls for the officers to check in. No one reached for the radios. Smith had a confident grin that made me feel uneasy. You'll support me. If not, I'll say I walked in and nobody stopped me. You can say it isn't true, but when the moment comes, people will wonder how 11 officers could just stand by. You might not go to jail, but you won't be officers much longer and could face some serious trouble. His grin grew wider. You said I'm crazy. At the worst, I'll end up in a nice place for a while, get better, and then leave. I might even meet someone nice while I'm there. That's a clever idea, I said. Smith and the others stared at me. But it has a few, very big flaws. Think of them as huge gaps. The smile on Smith's face didn't change. Go ahead, Maitland. What are the flaws? Are you going to bring me down with your so-called powers? No, nothing like that. Just something more practical. Can I take something out of my pocket? I'll do it slowly. Go for it. You're about to face some big problems. The rest of you, keep your hands away from any devices. I might only catch a couple of you, but at least 2 of you will deal with the consequences. Show us what you have, Maitland. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small device, like a cigarette lighter. I held it up slowly, and as Smith watched, I pressed a button. After a few seconds, I pressed another button. I have proof that won't come back to us. He came here to speak with you, and when I tried to reason with him, he suddenly became aggressive. People will believe me. They know he isn't stable. I stopped the recording and watched his reaction, then glanced around at the others. Hauser and a few others appeared to be thinking several steps ahead, like a chess player planning their moves. They understood. Even if Smith had contacts, they would eventually find out the truth. I hope you don't mind, but I always record conversations like this. No one will hear it unless it's really needed. So what? Are you going to give it to me? Or will I take it from you and destroy it? No one will ever know. Carefully, I held the recorder in my left hand and pressed two small buttons. This is the latest model, Sean. You might not have seen one like it. It's special. It not only records but also sends the message to my car, which sends it to my office. It's safely locked away. You can try to destroy it, but come Monday morning, people will be listening to this talk. It's stored digitally, so it has everything recorded since I got here. Unless you plan on breaking into my office, good luck with that without leaving lots of evidence behind. The sounds on the police radios changed, becoming urgent, and then everything went quiet. I looked at Sean and made sure to smile at him. Oh, and just so you know, I'm not going to hand this over. You can shoot me if you want it. Before he could react, I turned my back to him. Shoot me in the back, Sean. You're used to doing that, so it should be easy for you. Good luck telling your fellow officers how you shot me in the back while I was about to hurt you. Turn around now. I will shoot if you don't. But that's not the only problem with your plan, just the main one. There are more. Maitland, turn around. Sean, don't do this, Hauser shouted. Get any closer to that gun, Hauser, and it's over. Don't make me take action. Delwyn Belmont, keep your hands away from your tools. They were keeping him occupied, so I went on. Actually, the main issue with your plan is clear, and it could land all of you in trouble, or at least cost you your jobs. Let's say you get rid of the recording, or maybe it didn't work tonight, so there's no proof in my office. Then you all need to decide if you're going to support Smith with a lie. If you do and argue that I drew a hidden weapon, the first question everyone will ask is why would I bring out some unknown weapon when I have my Glock, which everyone knows I carry and use? Sure, you could try to explain how I supposedly pulled out this secret gun, but that will raise a lot of doubts. Of course, you could just forget about the hidden weapon and use my Glock after I'm gone to make the story easier. But then, there's still the question of how I got shot in the back while supposedly confronting Smith. But that's not the real issue. Imagine if you all decide to stick together and support Smith. Be honest. Do you think 12 people can keep a secret that could put them all in jail? You are police officers. You know that won't work. Someone will slip up or change their mind. And then it won't just mean losing your jobs. It will lead to charges of helping with a serious crime. They'll say you were part of it, maybe even before it happened because they won't trust anything you say. Every one of you could spend 10, maybe 20 years in prison because Edwards will want to make a point. I paused and took a deep breath, wondering if everything would change in the next moment. And even if you do tell the truth, and they don't charge you for standing by while a man was harmed right in front of you, as Smith said, you'll be seen as a joke in the police community. No officer will take a group seriously if they let one person with a weapon scare them. If word gets out, and it will, you'll constantly face trouble from criminals who think you're weak, but you won't be in your jobs for long. Austin Edwards may not like me, but he knows that cops cannot be harming prosecutors. It's not good for anyone. He will pressure Knight, and soon enough, you'll all be out of work. It was so quiet that I could hear the men shifting in their chairs, feeling stuck to the plastic seats. I could hear their breathing. Smith sounded like he was having trouble breathing. I pointed to the table and said, "They have napkins here, Sean. Maybe you should dry your hands. I bet you feel really tense right now. I wouldn't want you to drop something." I'm not sure why I said that. I don't want to be in any danger. I think it was just so after he confronted me, the police might tell my kids that story. They would remember me being brave, able to stay calm in a difficult situation. Sadly, as I pointed to the napkins, the bright overhead lights shined on the fleur-de-lis ring. I didn't want anything to make me feel like I needed to hold on to life even more right now. I know this is a tough spot, but I get why you might support him. You are like family, after all. Yes, and family in this line of work is loyal. Martinez, I know your wife cares. I saw her at that picnic. She was beautiful. I can't imagine her being unfaithful while you're away. When she's alone at home, missing you night after night, she will understand the commitment you have to your fellow officers. When the time comes and one of your brothers or someone else spends time with her, she might feel torn because your first duty is not to her, but to your fellow officer. I wonder how many of your wives would be that understanding. Will they spend lonely nights knowing your first loyalty was to the police? I wondered if I would have enough time to say everything I needed to. And James, maybe your wife will stand by you. But I saw your daughter at that picnic. She's growing up fast. It's a shame you won't be there to help her as she goes through her teenage years. James was a big black officer, and I wondered if he would try to face Smith Hedden. Maybe by the time you get out, you'll be a grandpa. That's something to look forward to. You are a dead man, Maitland. You walk and talk, but you are finished. I know you'll come after me, Sean. Your life will turn upside down tonight no matter what happens. It's sad. You were a good officer. I believe you are a good person who made a bad decision. Mistakes happen. But you won't admit what you did and take responsibility. We must face the results of our choices. I stood there waiting for the sounds I expected. I had no idea if his fellow officers would actually step in to help me, and even if they did, he could still follow through with his plans. I should have been scared. I prayed to whatever might be out there, but I don't really believe. I think when I close my eyes, that's the end. The person that wakes up every morning will be gone, like a candle snuffed out by the wind. I can't convince myself of a kind heaven where I would see my father again. I wish I could. It would make things much simpler. Thinking of my father, I wondered what he felt in his last moments. He must have heard the sounds of the rocks and wood giving way, and being a miner for so long, he knew what that meant. A second cabin in that old shaft meant no one would come for him again. Did he think of me and my mother? Did he have any doubts about his last choice? Did he regret not being there to see me grow up, or to be a part of my future? I already wished I knew what Kelly and BJ's kids would be like, or what my future children might become. But I couldn't change anything about what I'd done. Every choice I made and all my experiences brought me to this moment. I could wish I had made different choices, or that I hadn't lost Debbie, but deep down, I knew I wouldn't have changed a thing if I'd known what the future held. Thinking of Debbie made me think of Aline. Among all the memories I held, one stood out: Aline in the rain at night, looking back at me as we faced the unknown together. If it was possible to love someone before truly knowing them, I had felt that way with her. While Aline represented uncertainty, Debbie was my comfort. The joyful image that filled my mind was of Debbie smiling as I came home one day. I couldn't remember exactly when. My heart swelled with happiness knowing that she cared for me. Realizing I might never see that smile again, I felt some peace about how things had unfolded. Sometimes letting go feels easier. Debbie drove her 350Z into the parking lot of the long building marked with a large FOP sign. The police scanner buzzed with short messages and codes that were hard for anyone not in law enforcement to understand. But she was aware that several police cars had been dispatched and would arrive soon. The undersheriff and zone commander were coming in separate vehicles because someone reported that Sean Smith had been drinking too much and was acting strangely near the FOP Union Hall. Frantic calls to officers at the FOP meeting and to FOP President Phil Hauser went unanswered. One voice, filled with worry, said, "What's wrong with those guys? Why aren't they responding?" Another replied, "This isn't good. Go over there." Then another voice gave them a clear command to move to a private police channel. They understood without needing to be told to stay quiet. Somehow, she had managed to stay one step ahead of everyone. If they asked her how, she would only have intuition to offer as an answer. As a smart, professional woman, she had always dismissed tales of intuition, especially those about children or loved ones in trouble. There wasn't any scientific evidence to support such strong feelings. But how could she explain why she had left her home to rush to a building without any clear signs of danger? Deep down, she couldn't ignore what she felt. When she learned that Bill was at that location, even before she knew Sean Smith was also going there, she just sensed that she needed to be there too. It could have been nerves, worry for her ex due to how many officers felt about him, or leftover guilt from the pain she had caused him. She didn't expect Smith to show up, but perhaps it was a thought she had pushed aside. As she walked toward the building, crossing the well-kept grass in front of Atlantic Boulevard, she wondered how she would explain Bill's presence if Sean Smith wasn't inside. What if it turned out to be nothing more than a lively discussion about whether to press charges against Smith? She knew Bill would look at her and notice something. He had been blind to so much for years, but when he focused, he could see right through her. As Lou had said months ago, he never saw the struggles in their marriage or her feelings for another man because he trusted her. When Bill looked into her eyes, he would see beyond the walls she had built and understand something else. But he would get it wrong. She wasn't in love with him anymore. She had moved on since the morning she called him and said her feelings had changed. But as he had told her, you can't just stop loving someone that easily. She understood now that you could feel so much anger that you wanted to hurt someone, yet still hold on to love, or at least memories of them. That's all it was, memories of a happier time when they were young, and she had been the most important part of his life instead of just an afterthought. She heard loud sounds coming from the long building in front of her, the cries of fear filling the air. In a moment that felt timeless, she had a strong vision. She knew it was a vision, not just a passing thought. She was standing with Kelly and BJ, wearing dark clothes, looking down at an open casket. His face was calm, as if he were simply sleeping. As she leaned over, she realized he was gone and would never return. She felt like screaming. This wasn't right. No matter what had happened, no matter what she had done, no matter what he said, he always came back to her. Not long after they got married, he had comforted her one night when she shared her fears of losing him, saying, "That will never happen. I will always come back to you. No matter what, no matter where I am, I will always come back." But he had broken that promise and left her. Then she was running across the wet grass, quickly taking off her shoes, tears streaming down her face. Aftermath, September 23, 2005. My name is William Maitland. Officially, I am an assistant state attorney in Jacksonville, Florida. Unofficially, I feel like the main state attorney when it comes to everyday work, or I did. I think I must be dying. I've been hurt by a police officer among others who couldn't save me. My few friends called me Bill. My wife, when I had one, called me Bill. I'm pretty sure the officer who injured me, Sean Smith, has a habit of being reckless. He shot me in a bad spot and I'm bleeding a lot. I can't see well because blood is running into my eyes and I'm on the ground. I'm trying to move, but it feels like my arms and legs won't cooperate. I find myself wondering how long it takes to pass away and if you really understand what is happening as your life slips away. I recall, somewhat strangely, a movie called American Beauty that I watched a few years ago. In that film, the main character thinks about the moment of dying as feeling like it lasts forever. The movie suggests that this moment is like a small part of the afterlife, and you spend eternity reflecting on your life before everything goes dark. I can't help but wonder if that could be true, and when I will begin to think back through all the moments of my life. It must have started already. Through a red fog, I see the face of the woman I loved for 20 years. She once told me she loved me, but then she left, leaving me sad. I wish I could go back to the happy days when we first met, and when we were together. It's a shame I don't believe in second chances. If I could rewind time and learn from my choices, I would never have taken a job in the prosecutor's office. A man I respect once told me that we all have a role to play in a bigger plan. He said I helped lessen pain and bring fairness as a prosecutor. He believed that role was more important than being a husband and father. I gave up my chance for simple happiness to serve God. I don't really believe in God or heaven, but if I'm wrong and I find myself in a place like that, I would ask him to give me back the life he took away. If he wants to punish me for questioning him, then let him try. I don't think he could hurt me more than he already has. I know he can't, especially as Debbie's beautiful face gets closer. Tears run down her cheeks and I feel like I'm watching from a distance. While my memories clash inside me, I realize I hate her. Oh, how I hate her. But for now, I'll focus on loving her and remembering her. Maybe I will keep doing so forever if that American Dream movie is true. September 23rd, 2005, 8:12 p.m. Please let me go. Just let me go. She struggled against the two men trying to keep her from the upsetting scene on the ground. One was black and one was white. She was crying as she watched someone she knew well in trouble on the floor, being held down by several officers trying to help him. People surrounded them. Bill lay there, clearly needing help. A person she recognized as Sean Smith was lying a few feet away. He was face down, and she noticed a serious injury on the back of his head. A large man sat on the floor to the right of Bill. Officers were assisting him. One officer held him while another pressed on his stomach, blood seeping around their hands. A tall officer with thinning brown hair was being supported by two men. He was struggling to breathe. A larger officer urged him, "Take deep breaths, don't panic. You need to stay awake. Help will be here soon." Debbie tried to break free from one officer's grip, but only managed to get partially loose. "Let me go, please. That's my husband." The officer holding her arm looked at her and for a brief moment loosened his grip, and that was enough. She pulled her arm free and rushed to Bill's side. There was so much blood. Two of the officers who had been helping him stepped back, and she gently held Bill's head. She felt the warmth of blood at the back of his head, but she tried to keep him close. "You should have taken more care," she said, feeling both angry and scared. "Why?" She almost dropped him, but quickly steadied herself. She wrapped her arms around him, cradling his head so she could see his eyes through the blood on his face. "Bill, you're alive!" "Wow," one of the officers said while holding his legs down. "I thought you were gone. I thought that was it." Bill looked directly at him and a small smile appeared on his lips. "Reports of my—" He took a deep breath, struggling a bit. "Death were." Somehow, she understood what he was trying to say. Being married and together for 20 years had taught her how his mind worked. "Greatly exaggerated," she said. He smiled at her, which made her tears flow even more. An officer moved her hands away from his head and pressed a cloth to his injury. As the blood was cleaned away, they saw a long cut running from near the back of his head to near his temple. Though worried, the officer checked the wound and said, "It's deep, but it didn't hit the skull. No serious injury. Maitland, you're very lucky." "Then why?" she asked, having trouble believing it, hoping what she saw wasn't true. "There are many blood vessels in the head and face. You bleed a lot when injured like this, but I don't think he will lose too much blood. We need to clean this up. I'll get some cloths from the bathroom to check for more injuries. Can you hold him until I come back?" She didn't answer, just held him tighter. Even then, a part of her felt upset with him. Why had he put himself in danger, risking everything so carelessly? It seemed he didn't think about what he was risking as long as he believed he was doing the right thing. But those were just words. She had talked with him enough about his father leaving to know why those memories affected him so deeply. They had shaped the person he had become. But she thought, at some point, you have to grow up. You can't be someone who fights against wrongs without thinking about what your actions might bring. You could when you were on your own, but when you were married and had children, you lost the freedom to act without care, and it seemed like he never really understood that. She had only been partly joking when she called him Saint Bill to her mother and kids. Sometimes it felt like being married to a man everyone admired for his goodness. But in truth, she had only ever known part of him. No matter how much he said he loved her and their children, his actions told a different story. Over the last 10 years, he had shown that he cared more about being like his father than about the happiness of those he claimed to love the most. She held him close, cradling his head gently, knowing that if they hadn't hurt each other so much, he might have joked about their situation. But those jokes were gone now. She felt thankful she wouldn't have to call Kelly and BJ to tell them their father had left them. He was trying to move, and she softly urged him to stay still. She understood why the officers had been trying to keep him still. There might be other injuries, and the rule was to keep someone steady in such situations, but he kept shifting around. "Bill, please try to stay still. Even if the bullets didn't hit anything serious," she smiled gently at him. "And if they only grazed your brain, you still shouldn't be moving. Stay still until help arrives." He gave a weak smile and raised a trembling hand to wipe the blood from his eyes. "I feel terrible and a bit dizzy, but I'm not in serious danger." She let him turn a little, and he saw the officers helping a man named Phil. "Oh, no," he said softly. "Phil, Phil!" His voice was weak, but the big officer helping Phil heard him and pointed towards Bill. Phil looked up, his eyes wide with surprise. "I thought you were gone." His voice was strained, and he coughed, trying to catch his breath. "What?" the bald officer said. "One of Sean's shots must have caused some damage inside. Thankfully, it didn't hit anything important. He'll be okay. We all thought you were lost." Bill glanced at the officer, whose face was getting pale, with blood seeping despite their efforts to stop it. "James?" The officer looked at Bill and shook his head. "You know you're quite a troublemaker, don't you, Maitland? Or a pain in my side, anyway." "I'm sorry." James took a deep breath. "It's all on him, and he paid the price." "What?" The big, bald cop looked back at the situation in front of him, then at Bill. "You're alive because of Phil. His shot hit Sean in the neck, enough to keep the bullet meant for you from hitting you. But Sean wouldn't give up. He fought back against Phil while the others reacted. I thought I was in danger when James stepped in. We must have stopped firing because it got quiet until Sean aimed at James. When James fell back, we all took action, and he finally went down. We had to be sure." The bald cop stared at the scene on the floor, a hint of sadness crossing his face. He was tough, foolish, but tough. Anyway, that's what I remember. It was chaotic. Bill turned his head slightly to look at Debbie. She had gotten some paper towels and was gently wiping the blood off his face. He swallowed hard. "I'm feeling dizzy." She held back her response. He seemed in shock. His use of babe now felt different. "You're going to be okay, Bill. You're strong, but that event must have shaken you." He shut his eyes and then opened them wide, locking onto her gaze. "What? What are you doing here, Deb?" Her heart raced. This was the question she feared. How could she answer? Dennis Leary told me you were meeting with the police tonight." "And?" He was falling back into his old pattern of questioning. "Why are you here?" He wasn't letting it go. "You remember I said you don't see the dangers around you. I just wanted to be close by." "And you thought you could protect me?" "No, you stubborn man. I was worried about you. Are you happy now? You have children who care about you, and you don't think about your safety for their sake." "So you were here for our kids? Why do you need to ask me this now, Bill? I'm just trying to understand. Why do you care about someone you don't love anymore?" She closed her eyes. When she opened them, the room was filled with police and emergency workers. They were trying to separate her from Bill, but she held on tightly. "I said I didn't love you like that anymore, Bill. It doesn't mean I don't care about you." They pulled him away from her, but she managed to say her final words. "I came here tonight because I know you. I understand you better than anyone else. You acted just like you always do because that's who you are. I just lost sight of who you were for a while." She let go of him, pulling her hands away as two workers laid him down on a rolled-up blanket. She leaned over and gently touched his forehead. "I'm sorry I forgot, Bill." He looked up at her, and for once, she couldn't read his expression. "So am I, Debbie." Then the room turned hectic as rescue workers rushed to help the three injured men and tried to move away the people who had been helping them. Debbie stepped back and looked at her hands and dress. She was a mess. In a little while, she knew the news crews would arrive outside. She needed to call Kelly and BJ. If they heard early reports about their father being hurt and saw her on TV covered in blood, it would be troubling. As she watched the medics clean his head and face, gently turn him, and check for other injuries, she noticed a deep cut on the back of his head that went almost to his temple. It was a surface wound. He would be okay, and she realized she was finally letting out the breath she had been holding since she first heard the loud noises. So the image of what might happen had been wrong. It had felt so real, but it was just her mind playing tricks on her. They brought in stretchers, lowered one, and with the help of 3 men, lifted him onto it. Then they raised it to waist height and, while talking on their radios, began pushing him toward the exit. She started to walk toward him, but then stopped. When it was happening, when everything felt like it changed forever, she had held him without thinking. It was as if the last 6 months, the last 4 years, had never taken place. But they had. Now, as she thought about walking to him and holding his hand, she wondered how that would look to the people around her. If they knew what had happened, would they think she was just putting on a show? She walked beside him without touching him. "Do you want me to ride with you in the ambulance to the hospital, Bill?" He glanced back at her as he was wheeled slightly ahead. "No, that's okay." She had expected it, but, "I'll be fine, Deb. I want you to find Kelly and BJ. Let them know I'm okay. They're likely to hear rumors about me." He looked into her eyes. "I'm okay, Debbie, really. I'll be fine. I might not look as nice as I used to, but—" If she spoke her true feelings, she feared she would start crying again, so she forced a smile and said, "Well, that's not a big loss, then." He smiled back. "Goodbye, Deb. Please give the kids a hug for me." Then they were guiding him out the front door, leaving her alone with many unfamiliar faces. They were watching her, and for the first time she could remember, it made her feel uneasy. Yet, she walked over to where the big, bald officer was standing. "I wanted to thank you, and please thank your friend Phil for me too. Just so you know, I'm Bill's ex." He looked at her, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "I know who you are. I've seen you with him at the courthouse before you both separated. We got a divorce. It happens. But I still want to thank you for what you did." He shook his head. "I'm divorced too. Most cops end up divorced. It's common. But Maitland wasn't the problem from what I've heard. I kind of blame you for this. If you hadn't been in his life, I think he wouldn't have acted so strongly against Sean. He might have been more understanding." She held his gaze. "It doesn't matter what you think of me. He has 2 kids who didn't do anything wrong. Thank you for them." She turned and walked away. If he said anything back, she didn't hear and didn't care. September 24th, 2005, 6 p.m. I lay back in a hospital bed at St. Vincent's Medical Center trauma ward. I was lying on my side, which wasn't very comfortable. A skilled doctor had stitched up the back of my head the night before after I had arrived at the hospital. A bullet had come very close to hitting my skull, just about the thickness of a piece of paper, the doctor said. Because of this, they did several tests like CAT scans and MRIs to make sure there wasn't any damage or swelling in my brain from what had happened. There was also the issue of a concussion from when I had tried to help Debbie. I had not thought about that in a long time, and it had not caused serious problems. I would just get headaches if I read too much or didn't get enough sleep, but taking Tylenol helped. Another thing I experienced was what they called painless migraines. These were brief flashes of bright light in my vision, triggered by being tired or using my eyes too much. The doctors said they were not dangerous, just a bit annoying. However, the doctors at St. Vincent's emergency room and the specialists in the head trauma unit were worried that past and recent issues might have caused damage to my brain. So for the last 24 hours, they ran every test they could think of, plus some I had never heard of. They stitched up the back of my head after placing some material to fill a deep groove so I wouldn't look too different. It also made it hard for me to get more than half an hour of sleep at a time. I kept dozing off a bit. In my dreams, bits and pieces of what happened the night before and that day floated in and out of my mind. Noon. Dad. BJ and Kelly hurried into the private room set up for me. Debbie followed behind them. 3 nurses gathered around me. My head was wrapped in bandages from the treatment I had. The medicine they gave me made me feel sleepy and a bit confused. I could see the concern on their faces, so I smiled back at them. "It's all right. I look worse than I feel. Just a small cut on my head, and they took care of it." When they came closer, BJ took hold of my hand, the one with the IV in it, while Kelly stood behind him and held my other hand. Tears started forming in my eyes. "It's okay, everyone. Your mom was really brave last night. Everyone thought I wasn't going to make it until she showed up and helped me." They both glanced at their mom, who was standing quietly. I could feel the heaviness of what had happened. She had to deal with the results of her actions, and I understood it had affected how the kids viewed her. I wanted her to reconnect with them. They needed their mother. "Dad, you really need to stop this," BJ said. "I get enough trouble from people saying things about you. Now, if every girl I meet thinks you're some kind of guardian, it'll be impossible." Kelly playfully nudged him. "He's right, Dad. You really need to be more careful. I'm supposed to watch out for you, not worry about whether you'll get hurt." I tried to hold back my tears. I shook my head and said, "I'm sorry, you two. I never thought it would end up like this, but it's part of who I am. I doubt something like this will happen again." "He's right," Debbie said, finally speaking up as she moved closer to my bed. "We were married for nearly 20 years, and he has been a prosecutor for over 10 years. Nothing like this has ever happened before. It probably won't happen again." We shared quick glances that the kids missed, and I felt she understood the situation better than I realized. She seemed to know about the threats, and maybe even other things I thought I had kept hidden from her. I understood she was more aware of my life than I had thought. Maybe if I hadn't tried to protect her. I pushed that thought away. The past is the past, and I couldn't change it. The phone rang. They were supposed to filter my calls and take messages because it had been ringing almost all night. The hospital had told the nurses to only show me a list of calls every few hours, which I insisted on. Most of the calls were from the media, some were from the state attorney's or public defender's offices, and one was from Sheriff Knight. Nothing was urgent, so I could return the calls later. A moment later, a friendly brown-haired nurse, looking to be in her late 30s or early 40s, hurried in and leaned closer to speak softly. "The call was from a man who said you would know him as the old man." Her face showed some worry. "He told me my home address and mentioned the music my daughter listens to in her room, and—" Tears filled her eyes as she leaned in closer, glancing at Debbie and the kids. "He shared details about my life that only we know. The old man said if you don't answer his next call, my husband will receive pictures that could really upset him." She stopped, clearly distressed. "Please take the call. I love my husband. I can't. He would—" "I'll take it. Don't worry. He likes to play tricks but won't actually hurt anyone. Trust me, I've known him for a long time. He just wants to get my attention." Debbie heard part of that and her eyes showed her worry. I pointed at her and the kids. "I'm sorry, everyone. I need to take this call. Just a moment. Please don't go anywhere." Less than a minute later, the phone rang again. I answered it. There was a brief pause, a clicking noise, and then some static before I heard his voice. "Hello, Mr. Maitland." "Hello. I hope you are feeling better. Our contacts at the hospital told us your injuries were not serious, but they are being careful. That was a harsh thing you did." He let out a dry laugh. "You may have heard I can be tough when needed." I knew he could be heartless. I had seen many unsettling things in his past. "From what I understand, your actions have always been about business, things you felt were vital to your safety. Going after this poor woman was beneath you." "What did I do, Mr. Maitland? I didn't threaten her or her family. I just reminded her that her choices mattered. Do you really think that if I wanted, I couldn't find out her secrets quickly? Her husband is bound to find out too." There was a brief pause, filled with static. "You think that was harsh? To give her a chance to fix her marriage and save her husband from the heartache you know too well? What exactly did I do that was so wrong?" He was as clever as he was cold, possibly even more dangerous because of how smart he was. When you have almost unlimited power and no sense of right or wrong, there are few things you won't do. "Why are you calling?" "Just checking in. When we learned you were almost hurt, I got notified and we looked into it. It seems to just be the actions of an unstable person, so there's nothing for me to do here. I'm relieved you came through mostly okay. I hear the injury should heal without much trouble. As always, your sources are right on target. I'm thankful that you always look out for me." There was a pause longer than before. "You know I've never loved anything in my life except for one person. Now I have nothing to love because he passed away without leaving an heir, and my line ended with him. But he left this world peacefully, thanks to you. You didn't know him and had no reason to treat him well, yet you did because of your good character. I can't fully repay you for this, but I will do my best." Another quiet moment hung in the air, and then I said, "I'm sure you've heard about the Mexican cartel and an associate who is about to face trial in the U.S. "Yes, and the cartel is already acting against anyone they think will help with the case. I think I know more about it than you do." "Really?" "They are looking ahead, and there is one thing they fear." When I stayed silent, he continued, "That fear is you. The Angel of Death has become a legend in Mexico and nearby areas. The culture has a strong curiosity about death, and the Angel of Death ties into old stories about death deities. The cartel leaders hope that the trial does not reach your office. They are afraid of a story. To those who believe in it, stories can feel very real. If the trial does come to you, the cartel faces a serious threat. They face a threat. They can't let you handle their case. Losing would damage their reputation, and new rivals could emerge because the idea of their invincibility would be broken. If they get rid of me, that would fix their problem. That's true, but if they try and fail... I considered this for a moment and then said, it's still a long way to go, but it brings up something we need to talk about. You don't need to say anything more. If they come after your family, they will regret it. And I will stand by you, giving my all. Yes. That sounds fair. If they target my family, my life will already be over anyway. And if they come for me. Your family will be safe if we need to act. Then it's settled. I would appreciate it if you could watch over things for me. If they threaten my family or me, do what is necessary. I'll do everything I can. Goodbye. Goodbye, Mr. Maitland. I gently hung up the phone. Whenever I talked to him, even just a few times, it felt like I stepped into a different world, far from where most people lived. It wasn't a nice feeling, but I never asked for it. I had just tried to be kind to someone and ended up caught in a dark situation that I wanted nothing to do with. But the old man felt he owed me something and couldn't be persuaded or scared away. It was like walking through a dark forest and sensing a large, powerful presence watching over you, ready to confront anything that posed a threat. You might not want or need his help, but how do you send him away? That was something I hadn't figured out in over 7 years. Maybe I never would. Until he was gone, I hoped those who came after him wouldn't feel the same obligation. For now, knowing I had strong support made me feel better about my life as I looked at my ex-wife, son, and daughter. As I waved them over, Debbie asked quietly, "Who was that?" "Just a man who cares about my well-being. He's a sort of friend." "I think everyone must know about what happened," BJ said with excitement. "I found a French news channel on my friend's direct TV and caught a broadcast. I couldn't understand what they were saying." "You would have if you had paid more attention in your French classes," Kelly chimed in. BJ continued to overlook her. "The only class you cared about was health education," BJ remarked. "Anyway, they aired Dad's picture and some footage of people being taken from the police station. I heard them mention the Angel of Death in French and caught the name William Maitland. France! They showed it on French television. Can you believe that?" "Yes, I can believe that. I'm sure there are people in France who will be very interested in your father's situation, especially a few specific people." We all noticed the coldness in her voice. The two younger Maitlands struggled to hold back smiles. I kept my expression neutral. I knew she felt jealousy towards Aline, but I hadn't realized how deeply it affected her. Then something unexpected happened. The phone rang. I chose to ignore it, but soon after a friendly nurse peeked back into the room. "Mr. Maitland, there's a lady on the phone. I think she's French. She says her name is Aline. Would you like to talk to her? I have her on hold." "Yes, put her through." In that moment, it felt like Debbie and I were the only two people in the world. I thought back to the last time she looked at me like that. It was when she walked in on me and Amy Sunderland during an awkward moment on CC's yacht. I had felt shame then for no real reason, but not now. I remembered how she rushed to help Doug that night of the UNF event and tried to summon those same feelings again. I held her gaze and said, "Hello, Aline." There was so much pain in her eyes, but I hardened myself. She didn't have a right to feel hurt by my actions anymore. "Bill, are you all right?" I thought I had moved past the ache of losing her, but it felt as intense as the morning she had left me. Hearing her voice so close didn't make it any easier. "I'm good, Aline. Better than good since I'm alive. My son just told me the news story was big in Paris." I couldn't believe it. "Bill, you always underestimate yourself. The attempt on the Angel of Death, with a rogue police officer and many armed officers, has made news worldwide, I think." "What did Philippe say about my situation?" I'm not sure, Bill. He's still at his office. I found out about what they are calling the incident when I checked the news. Andre is with friends. so I took the subway to downtown Paris and found a public phone. You didn't want to call me at home or on your cell? Why not? There was a long pause. You should know that Philippe was with me when I wrote that email. I would have written it differently if I had been alone and not worried he would see it. What are you worried about, Aline? Bill, it's different. What is it, Aline? What aren't you telling me? For the first time since the hard event, I wasn't thinking about myself or Debbie. Bill, it's just that, remember I told you I wouldn't know if our marriage would last until I looked into his eyes. I have looked into his eyes. We talked. I was open with him and I still don't know. For the first time, when I look at him, it feels like his eyes are closed to me. You were open with him? About everything? I was too open. I know he is hurt even if he hasn't said anything. We have both been with other people. I hoped that we could move past my time with you. He shouldn't feel hurt. For the first time, I heard anger in her voice. He has been with many other women, and even if he says he was discreet, I know who they are, many of them. I've seen them and their reactions when we are together. I've dealt with that because I had to. And now, because I've been with one man he knows, he is acting like a victim. I'm sorry, Aline. I didn't intend for what happened between us to create problems in your marriage. It's not your fault, Bill. None of this is on you. Philippe and I set rules for ourselves. We had an understanding. He is the one who broke that trust. I won't feel bad for what he has done many times before. There was a long pause. I glanced at BJ and Kelly. They exchanged looks, piecing together what they could from my side of the talk. I turned my gaze to Debbie. If looks could hurt, I would have been in trouble. So, what? What will happen? I'm not sure, Bill. I don't want to hurt you, but I still have feelings for him. We've built a life together, and there's Andre. I can't just walk away, but I don't know if he wants to be with me. Only time will tell. She was quiet again. Then she said, I can't ask anything. I'm with someone else. I care about him, but I care about you too. Please take care of yourself. Don't take risks with your life. It matters to me. I care about you too. Take care. Goodbye. I met my children's eyes, and I knew something important had shifted immediately. They looked at me in a new way. Their mother and I were divorced, and they were old enough to understand what that meant. They had seen Aline and how I looked at her, but there may have been a lingering hope in their mind, for most of my life was with someone else, and there was nothing I could do about it. Part of me wanted to help her. Maybe I would always care about her, but there was no way to help her now. She had created this situation. I had managed to get out of my troubles on my own. She could figure things out for herself. We looked at each other until she finally looked away and left the room. BJ and Kelly watched her go, and then Kelly leaned down to give me a gentle touch on my cheek, while BJ held my hand firmly. We should go, Kelly said, pointing toward the door. Yeah, it's best. This has been tough for your mom, too. She thought I was in serious trouble last night. That's not what she's really upset about, Kelly replied. I know, but I'll probably be out of here by tomorrow. I'll call both of you and keep you posted. Sound good? September 26, 2005, 12:30 p.m. They had already let me go. A young doctor and an older doctor shared with me the results from all the tests they had done over the past 2 days. In the end, they couldn't find anything wrong with me. Besides a persistent headache and a soft ringing in my ears, which are common after a troubling experience, the medical team felt positive about my recovery. They thought the headache would fade in a day or two, and the ringing might last for a week or two but would eventually disappear, the older doctor explained. He had a calm and wise look, like someone with a lot of knowledge. The tall, young doctor, who seemed to attract the attention of the nurses, offered some careful advice. It looks like you've managed to avoid major problems from your past head injuries. Even with an old injury, the CAT scan shows nothing too serious. You've made it through this one as well. He leaned in a bit and spoke softly. I must tell you that any hit to the brain can bring risks. I understand you've been trying amateur boxing. Yes, I said. I won't say you shouldn't continue, but I highly suggest you always wear protective gear. And if you ever ride a motorcycle, please wear a helmet. You've been lucky, Mr. Maitland, but it's best not to rely solely on luck. Do you understand? I thanked him and asked about Officer Hauser and James, knowing they had both been admitted but not having received updates since Saturday. As soon as I asked, I noticed the young doctor's face change. The older doctor took over with a more serious tone. Sergeant Hauser seemed to be doing well at first. His condition caused a lot of concern, and while he had some health issues, they were manageable with proper care. We planned for him to go home today. But, I prompted, a complication happened. A blood clot formed in his lung from his injury and sadly moved to his brain. This was unexpected and caused a stroke last night. It was swift and alarming. I hope it gave you some comfort to know it was quick. I leaned back against the hospital bed. The young doctor gently placed a hand on my shoulder. "Are you okay, Mr. Maitland? Take some deep breaths. You can rest for a bit if you feel lightheaded." Phil Hauser was gone. Why did I agree to meet him when I knew my feelings about Sean Smith wouldn't change? He would still be alive if I hadn't tried to help him with some team issues. I knew it wasn't my fault. None of us could have predicted what Sean would do. Still, he saved my life, and that cost him his own. I'd like to see his room. His body was taken away early this morning. I'd still like to see it. Is another patient in there? No, the older doctor replied. I stood at the entrance of the semi-private room where Phil spent his last moments. The hospital bed was neatly made, the sheets smooth and crisp. I recalled how relaxed and happy he looked before Sean came in. He liked you, you know. I hesitated to turn around, but did so anyway. She was a bit shorter than me, a heavier brunette with bright blue eyes and a pale face. "I'm sorry, Miss Hauser. I truly am." "It wasn't your fault, Mr. Maitland," she said, looking around the room in disbelief as if waiting for him to show up. "He knew Sean was wrong. He wanted to talk about what happened but couldn't because they were both police officers. Still, he mentioned a few times that people like you were the best thing about the paper-pushing officials in the SA. That sounds like Phil. Are you okay? Is there anything I can do?" She turned to me and took a deep breath. "No, I'm not okay. Our kids are away. Bert is in the army on a tour in Iraq and Molly is working in Miami. She's an emergency room nurse and is flying home tonight. I think Bert will be coming in a couple of days. Right now, it's just me. It used to be me and him. Now, it's just me. It feels wrong. If there's anything I can do. There's nothing anyone can do, nothing." When she turned away and started to shake quietly, I stepped out of the room. I could hear her crying as I walked to the nurse's station and called for Cheryl. 2 of our female helpers would be at the hospital in about half an hour to stay with her until her children arrived. She wouldn't have Phil, but she wouldn't be alone. I was going to see James anyway, but I felt uneasy about him because of what happened to Phil. I found out where he was and went up to his floor, to the intensive care unit. I knew a gut injury was serious, but I wasn't sure why he was still there 3 days after the incident. As I approached the room, a nurse stepped in front of me. "I'm sorry, visitors aren't allowed to see Mr. James." "My name is Maitland. I'm the assistant state attorney who was shot on Friday. James saved my life. Could you please let me in for just a moment to say hello?" An older nurse who had heard me stepped forward. "You can go in, Mr. Maitland. His wife is with him, but we can make an exception for a moment." "But, what?" "He's not well. He has a high fever right now. He might not be very aware of what's going on." "Why?" "I won't give you all the details, but it looks like he has an infection from a tough strain of bacteria that can be found in some hospitals." "Tough?" "That means only that it's going to be hard to treat. We are using strong antibiotics. It should help clear the infection, but may leave him weak for a few days or weeks until he gets better. If we can keep him stable and if he is strong enough, he will recover." I noticed the ifs. She wasn't being overly hopeful. I understood that injuries to the stomach could lead to serious problems from infections. But this was worse? I decided I would have someone light a candle for him next to the others I had lit for Dunleavy and O'Collins at the downtown church, and I would say an extra prayer. I usually see it as a personal habit, but if there was someone listening, it couldn't hurt, and he deserved it. I walked in behind her. He was a big man, seeming to take up the whole bed, tangled in cords and tubes. His skin looked pale and unhealthy. A smaller woman held a cup with a straw up to him. "Come on, you need to drink. Just sip a little." She didn't notice me until I stepped closer to James. Sweat covered his face, and the room felt warm. He must have soaked through his hospital gown. At first, I didn't think much of it. I imagined many doctors and nurses came through, so she was used to strangers walking in. But then she recognized me. "You haven't done enough?" Her tone seemed to wake the big man, and he opened his eyes. There was almost a smile on his lips. "Maitland, I can't believe it's you." She was a striking woman. Deep, dark eyes and a serious look that showed her worry. Her hair was straight and fell down her back. She was small but seemed strong. James had been lucky until this happened. "Mrs. James, I'm truly sorry for what happened. I never wanted any of this." "I'm glad to hear that. I'd hate to think you wanted my husband in this hospital bed while you walked away." "Alexis." James managed to speak a little stronger. "Don't be like that. Maitland didn't do this to me. It was all Sean." If this situation hadn't involved that other person, he started to cough and then cleared his throat. Alexis James put the cup down and grabbed a cloth. A nurse rushed over to help him sit up. He coughed for a moment before settling down. The nurse then assisted him back onto the bed. After a little while, he opened his eyes again and said, "I have to tell you, Maitland, I feel awful. I probably look terrible too, right?" I smiled and responded, "You're still a great guy, James. I bet your wife has many fans." He lay back and shut his eyes, saying, "Only in my dreams." He seemed to drift off, and soon I could hear him snoring softly. I stood there unsure of what to say next. Alexis James continued to gaze at me closely. Finally, I said, "James, I hope you feel better." I reached over and took one of his large hands in mine. His skin felt warm. I squeezed it gently a couple of times, then let it go. "Mrs. James, if there's anything I or the state attorney's office can do, please tell us." I started to leave, but she touched my shoulder to stop me. "I'm sorry, Mr. Maitland. I know you didn't cause this. We've been together since I was 13 and he was 16. I used to sneak out to see him after my parents fell asleep. We've been together for 20 years. I've never been with anyone else. They're not saying it, but he could die. I've never felt this scared in my life. I don't know what to do. I keep thinking about our daughter. I'm so afraid." "I understand your fear. The only person I lost was my father when I was a child. I didn't really get what was happening back then, but I can feel what you're going through now. The thing is, they thought I was gone, and I survived. James is strong. The nurse told me they're giving him all the best care. It depends on his will to fight, and he has you and your daughter to focus on. I believe he will get through this. It's not much, but you need to believe that he will come out of here. He's a good man. If there's any justice, he will." I left her there, holding his hand, hoping my words would come true. September 26th, 2005, 3:45 p.m. I walked back to my office area and noticed the quiet that fell as I entered. Secretaries stopped talking and stared at me. A few assistants stepped out of their offices to look at me too. When I reached Cheryl's desk, she stood up, and I paused. She came around and hugged me tightly. I could feel my shirt getting damp. The big man had insisted I wear black a while ago, and I went along with it. I bought most of my clothes in black, except for a few casual items like shorts. Today, I wore black slacks, a black button-up shirt, and a black coat. Finally, I pulled back from the hug. "What is going on, Cheryl? You're acting like I barely made it." It was strange, but I felt tears start to form. I was becoming quite emotional myself. She sniffed. "Don't joke, Bill. It was serious. I could have been hit by a car crossing the street. I'll admit it was intense, but it's over now. I just have to deal with the media." "Tell me about it," she said, stepping back to check the bandages on my head. "We've had more than 200 calls from media around the world. We haven't had much time to get any work done today. Of course, Mr. Edwards isn't upset about it." I smiled at her. "As long as they spell his name right, right?" I didn't wait for her to answer and made my way to my office. I opened the door and stopped. A mountain of papers covered my desk, filled with phone messages and sticky notes. I started sorting through them: New York Times, Sky News, the UK Guardian, and continued going through the rest of the stack. 6 months ago, I had been an unknown assistant state attorney in a small Florida city. My fellow lawyers might have recognized me, but in public, I was happily invisible. I had never wanted to be famous. Sure, I had thought about fame and fortune now and then, but I never truly needed it. I had a wife I loved, 2 teenagers who were growing up quickly, a job I believed in, and a decent income. What more could I want? Now, I found myself strangely in the spotlight, and it seemed like people all over the world were living through my experiences. I realized that trying to retreat into my private life was as likely as convincing the boss to leave me be. Cheryl popped her head in my office. "We have another call. It's CBS in New York. Do you want to take it?" "No. Hold all my calls. If it's something urgent, just let me know." I sat down at my desk, resting my head in my hands. I buzzed Cheryl and asked her to get someone to bring me a cappuccino, mostly foam, and then I tried to gather my thoughts. 20 minutes later, my door opened without a knock, and I looked up in surprise. Only one person did that, and I didn't expect him. Austin Edwards walked in with my cappuccino and handed it to me over the desk. He settled into the chair across from me, and we shared a quiet moment. I sipped the foam and wiped my lip. "Are you trying to take over my job?" I asked. "That's been the plan for the last 10 years. When did you figure it out?" "It's pretty clear with all the media attention and the calls I've been getting. Some people want to put you on a pedestal. Others think I should step back and let someone else take the lead. It is kind of overwhelming. I feel like I'm sliding down a hill with no way to stop." "Get used to it. Public figures have always faced a lot of pressure, and look what happened to them. You might want to start preparing some speeches." "Not interested. Look, Austin, this is your area. You have ideas about creating a better world and helping others. I'm just a lawyer who knows how to speak well and make a strong case. I enjoy my work and believe I do it well. Trying something different would be hard for me. Like they say, if you can be humble, you can achieve anything." I took a sip of my warm drink. "Should I start looking for a new job? Since there won't be a trial, I could send out my resume anytime. Just let me know." He shook his head and glanced down at his fingers, which were resting on my desk. "No, your choice to stay or leave is yours. If you feel awkward working with me now, I won't pressure you to stay if it's too hard." "It's not just my choice, Austin. You said once this is over, you wanted me to move on. You're still going to feel the effects of this. So what has changed?" He looked deeply into my eyes. I felt a wave of respect for him again. When I first started as a prosecutor, he had hired me, guided me, and gave me a chance that few my age ever got. He was the person I admired and tried to be like. Even now, I felt he was a better person and lawyer than I could ever be. I hope you see that my view on the case was about more than politics. I truly believed there was real uncertainty about whether we should continue with it. I thought your personal challenges had made you stronger than before. You know we have a big impact on people's lives. We can make a difference if we choose to. I've always thought you used your position wisely. After those challenges, I really thought you were unhappy with life in general, and that was affecting how you thought and made choices. Now." He looked down at his hands and then back at me. "I need to know for my own peace of mind that you understand I didn't want to change my values to get a better job. It wasn't just about politics." "I get that, Austin. I know it was a tough call and that honest people can see things differently." I knew the political side bothered him, but it was more than that. If I had just believed you were trying to protect your run for governor, I would have quit right away and gone public, because I couldn't have kept working for you. But I know you better than that. You forget I have worked for you for 10 years. I know the kind of person you are. You're more than just another politician." "So you want to stay? Until you ask me to go?" I finished my drink and wiped my mouth. He stood up. "By the way, I already had an early poll done, and it matches the calls I've gotten. Many people in this community appreciate that we didn't ignore wrongdoing no matter who was involved. The public expects accountability, and that's what they want. The only problem I see is that more people are starting to know your name than mine." But he smiled when he said that. "So being good worked out?" "Looks like it." "Who would have guessed?" He was almost to the door when he stopped and looked back at me. "I heard that you went to the hospital without Debbie, who seemed to be involved in the situation. And I think she wanted to go with you. I nodded. And I believe your French friend called you while you were in the hospital. Is she coming back? I shook my head. So, you're not in a relationship? Where does curiosity about your staff's personal lives fit on the chart of good administration? A good manager cares about the happiness of their team. A happy team is a productive team. It's basic management. If it makes you feel better, no, I don't have anyone in my life right now. I'm not doing well with that. He reached for the doorknob. I just wanted to let you know that one of my team members has shown interest in your life since your recent breakup with Debbie. She waited for you to move on, only to see Aline catch your attention. Now that you're free, maybe you should ask her out for a coffee. Do I know her? You see her every time you visit my office. I hesitated for a moment. Are we talking about... Yes. Austin, I, we, she. He waited patiently for me to gather my thoughts. Okay, Austin, if you're serious. Why would she need you to help her? Any guy here would jump at the chance with her. She probably gets a lot of attention. She doesn't need me. Why didn't she just call or stop by? And what about you? First, any man would like to be with her. But she doesn't go out with just anyone. Second, many women prefer to let men take the lead. She might not want to pursue you. And finally, he smiled slightly, things aren't always what they seem. Think about it. He left, leaving me in thought. Before I could respond, he returned and said, By the way, why don't you let Chambers and Hennessy take care of the daily tasks for the rest of the week while you focus on interviews? You're quite popular right now. Let's take advantage of that and get interviews scheduled with television, radio, and newspapers. Make sure to highlight how much Austin C. Edwards has helped the office progress. Does that sound good? I just smiled back at him. I would never understand why he wanted the spotlight and pressures of public life, but if it made him happy... Sure thing, boss. September 27th, 2005, 3 p.m. As I walked toward the desk in front of Austin Edwards' office, I felt a mix of feelings. She looked up from her papers and smiled. Good afternoon, Mr. Maitland. Or should I say Mr. Angel? Please don't say that, Myra. Her smile faded a bit. I'm sorry, Bill. I heard about that officer. I shouldn't joke about serious things. I just thought... It's okay, Myra. Not everyone can focus on the past forever. I'm just grateful to be here now. I'm glad you're here. Mr. Edwards mentioned you would be around for a while. For the foreseeable future. She looked at his office door. I don't have you scheduled to see him. Would you like me to call him, or do you want to go in? I didn't come to see him. It only took a moment for her to understand. Then why are you here? I usually take a coffee break at Starbucks around this time. Would you like to join me for a cappuccino? You enjoy coffee, right? Her expression changed a bit, and a hint of a smile appeared. Why? Why what? You've never offered to buy me coffee after working together for over 7 years. For most of that time, I was married. It might look strange, a married man taking a woman out for coffee in Jacksonville. The prettiest woman in Jacksonville? All right, Northeast Florida. She took a deep breath, and I admired her calm. Why now? I paused to think. I'm divorced and available. No ties. There's nothing wrong with a single man asking a single woman to grab a coffee together. No commitments? None at all. And why am I being questioned about having a cappuccino? She took a deep breath and looked straight at me. A woman has to be careful about who she goes out with, even for something as simple as coffee. Even something simple can change your life. I looked away for a moment. I understand that. It's fine. If you're busy, we can do it another time. I'm free. Let me let Mr. Edwards know I'll be out for about 15 to 30 minutes. We took the elevator down and headed to Starbucks, noticing the surprised looks we got. No one but Austin Edwards was ever seen with Myra Martinez in the courthouse, especially with someone who just came from a tough moment. I walked slightly behind her, admiring how she moved so gracefully. There were 3 people in line ahead of us, but the barista on the left side of the counter managed to assist Myra first and then took my order after a moment. Starbucks only had 5 tables, and they were all taken. As we held our cappuccinos, 4 young men at the nearest table decided they needed to leave and signaled to Myra that she could use their table. They took their time getting up. I wonder what it's like to be you. She looked past me, and I noticed Debbie standing with Dennis Leary and a female officer near the courthouse entrance. Leary was watching us and trying to hide a smile, while Debbie followed his gaze towards our table. "You lived with someone like me for 20 years. You should know what my life is like, except I haven't had anyone like you around." A mixture of feelings crossed Debbie's face. Leary said something to her, and she shook her head before walking over to us. Myra just smiled warmly. "Hello, Bill. Miss Martinez." "Hello, Miss Bascom. You're looking very professional today." "I really respect a woman who knows how to handle her job well." "I bet you do. Maybe you should think about it too, just a thought. Bill, it's great to see you feeling better. Has Aline tried to contact you since Saturday? It was really sweet when you shared your feelings for her in the hospital. Don't you feel a bit bad for leaving her unsure like that?" "Not that it's your business anymore, but I haven't spoken to her, Debbie. And yes, I'm feeling better. Thanks for asking." Leary came up behind her and tapped her on the arm. "Miss Bascom, we have that meeting upstairs." "I don't want to hurry you, but—" "You're right, Dennis," she said, turning to him and giving a warm smile as she lightly touched his arm. "Thanks for the reminder." She looked back at Myra and me and said, "Well, have a nice day, you two. I'm off." She walked away confidently, and Leary looked at me and winked before following her. "She seems upset," Myra said. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have poked at her like that. If she's going to work here and be near me, she needs to get used to seeing me with other women. By the way, how about the big man? What about him? I don't get what's happening. I thought you and he—" "Did I ask you about Aline or that police officer?" "No, and there's nothing going on with Aline, if you care. She's back with her husband and son. I don't expect to see her again, but I thought everyone thinks—" "That I'm his top choice?" "More or less. What I choose to do in my private life is just that, private. But with people thinking we are together, it keeps distractions away. I don't have to worry about all the interested attorneys and officers downtown. If there's someone I like, I see them away from here." "Well, I'm glad to know you haven't completely lost touch." "Not really," she smiled. She picked up her cappuccino and took a sip. I did too, and since mine was mostly foam, I ended up with a milk mustache. Before I could react, she leaned over and lightly wiped my upper lip with a napkin, then smiled at me. I just stared at her, wondering if I could go back to my office in a couple of hours without starting any rumors. You really shouldn't do things like that. I didn't want all that tasty foam to go to waste. Don't take this the wrong way, but I might not be able to get up for a little while. I'd be surprised if you could. I know we're just playing around here, but I want you to know this is just friendly teasing. I like to get to know someone before things go further. You don't know me after 7 years? Not that I mind taking my time. I know the office, Bill, Mr. Maitland, the professional side. I'd like to know the real you. That seems fair. The next few weeks are going to be busy for me anyway. Austin has me scheduled for media interviews all week, and I'll be out of town for a couple of days. Next week won't be much better. He says we have to make the most of our media time while we can. So, why today? I just wanted to let you know I'd like to see you when I can. My life has been a whirlwind the last 8 months. I'm uncertain about the future, but I want to take this chance to get to know you outside of work. Take another sip, she suggested, nodding towards my cappuccino. I didn't know why, but I did as she said. When she gently touched the foam on my lip, it brought up feelings I didn't expect. She smiled playfully at me, a hint of mischief in her eyes. We're going to take our time, but I want you to know it will be worth it when we finally connect. I never doubted that, I said, looking for a way to change the subject and escape the table. October 1st, 2005, 11:55 p.m. That was lovely, she said with a deep sigh. She sat comfortably next to him, feeling relaxed. Really nice, he added with a laugh. On a scale of 1 to 10, how nice was it? On a scale of 1 to 10, that was a 200, he joked, enjoying the moment. There was a bond between them that felt easy and warm. It amazed her how quickly she felt at home with him, especially since they had only met recently at UNF. He was different from anyone she had known before. She felt more at peace with him than she had in a long time. Have I told you how happy I am we met that day? She asked softly, her eyes shining. Same here, he replied with a bright smile. They shared a quiet understanding, a connection that felt real. "Are you ready for another round?" he teased lightly. With a playful smile, she replied, "You'll need to put in a bit more effort." He laughed, enjoying their playful banter and the moments they spent together. One day, she thought, you'll have to stop worrying about it. Soon the past will fade away, and it won't matter anymore. She rested her head against his chest, feeling a swirl of emotions. Bill's close call had brought back memories she thought were long gone. It hadn't brought back love, though, as there was still too much hurt inside. Watching him chat with someone else had made her feel frustrated all day. But it also reminded her of why she had once cared for him. More than anything, she felt sadness. Sadness for how they had both changed and how they had lost what they once had. She wondered if she would ever feel that closeness again. Clint was a good friend, someone she respected and liked, but it wasn't the same strong feeling. It was nothing like what she had felt with Bill in college. She thought about the strong bond they had shared back then. Lying next to him, she felt a wave of comfort. After months of friendship and shared experiences, he had shifted from just a friend to someone important in her life. Looking at his familiar face and the gentle smile on his lips, she recognized a feeling she could hardly name. It felt like love, but in a different way. When he smiled at her, she felt a fear she had never experienced before, realizing this feeling could be true love. Before, she had gone through crushes that came and went, which were fun but brief. This felt different. She knew he could hurt her more than others ever had. Her first instinct was to run away and fill her time with other things. But when he reached for her, she decided to stay. Clint moved, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I need a drink. You've made me so thirsty. Want some wine?" "Sure, I'd like that." When he came back, he handed her a glass and sat down next to her. "Are you going to stay the night?" "I should probably go home. I have things to get ready for Monday. Kelly is with my mom and BJ is with friends like usual, but I really should head out." He sighed softly. "I get it. I'm just someone you pass the time with until you're ready to go home. It's so frustrating." She looked at him for a moment, but he seemed deep in thought. "You know," she said, "we'll have plenty of chances to talk about this. Trust me." He gave her a thoughtful glance. "Actually." She paused for a second. "Wait a minute. Are you saying you're leaving? You've been here for a while and now you're moving on?" He took a sip of his drink and looked her straight in the eyes. "I'm not ending things with you, but I am moving on." "What do you mean?" He set his drink down and moved to lie next to her. "I planned to tell you earlier, but I've been busy. I'm ending my contract with the university early. It was supposed to finish in April, but either side can call it off without any issues. I'll let them know on Monday, and they'll find someone else to take over. There are always writers looking for a steady job for a bit." "But why?" "Something important has come up." "Just like that, something important?" "I often switch between fiction and freelance work. About 2 weeks ago, the company I work with for longer freelance projects offered me a new assignment." "Couldn't it wait until your contract ends? You said new assignments always come up. You've built a good reputation, and you're not struggling for money. Why now? Why leave a good position?" "Not for this one." In response to her unasked question, he explained, "This one has a tight deadline and is a big chance for me. There's a region in Central Africa that's in conflict, with a few countries involved. The area has valuable resources like minerals and possibly oil. There are various groups, both military and private, caught up in ongoing struggles. The situation is very chaotic, and there's a well-known leader who plays a major role in the conflict. There are many stories about him, some likely exaggerated, but he's known for being very harsh. But eventually the truth comes out. Oh no. Exactly. He has left many people hurt, some say hundreds on those painful spikes. Quite a reputation. But how does this connect to you? Here's where it gets interesting. Sadly, the people who live in this tough part of the world have been attacked by every gang that comes through. They take the locals' food, take advantage of them, and force their boys to fight in their groups, like a scene from the past. It's no surprise that the local people have become quiet. Their strength was broken long ago. Until a couple of years back, that is, stories began to spread about a saint who suddenly appeared. The people there are mostly Roman Catholic, with roots going back to the 17th and 18th centuries when missionaries came to the area. The tales say this saint, a woman, could help the sick, bring back loved ones, and calm storms. All the usual miraculous things. But here's the twist: they say that where she walks, flowers come to life. Whole gardens of beautiful blooms. That's not something you hear every day. Debbie just looked at him. Do you really believe this? Flowers grow where she walks? Sounds like a fairy tale. Clint rubbed his hands together and took a sip of his drink. Sure, it might not be true, but the people there believe the stories. They believe it so much that they've started standing up to the powerful warlord and the other fighters in the area. They are refusing to help them or share any information about the resistance, even though they face great hardship and loss. It's making the tough guys very frustrated. No one has ever challenged them like this, and then this woman comes along, and suddenly the locals find their courage. Every soldier has a price on the head of the woman they call the Saint of the Flowers. What does this have to do with anything? He simply looked at her, and she got it. No. She sat up and accidentally knocked over the beer bottle, spilling it everywhere. She pointed at him, and he barely caught her hand. Debbie. Stop, Clint Abbott. Think about this. Are all men reckless? He wrapped his arms around her, holding her while she kept pointing at him. Debbie, don't overreact. It's not what you think. Let me go before I make a scene. I should do that anyway to stop you from making a bad choice. But he wouldn't let her go, and eventually, she stopped fighting. You're really going to do it, aren't you? The company has connections, and they think they can get me into the country with someone who knows what they're doing. The guy is good from what they say, and has been in many tough places without getting hurt. If we can talk to the Saint of the Flowers and her followers, get some pictures, we can write our own stories. It's a team effort. He'll write short pieces for his clients, and I'll work on a book. It could make me a lot of money. Enough that I wouldn't have to work again if I didn't want to. She pulled away from him, and the memory of Bill filled her mind. Or you could find yourself in a risky situation far from home. Are you out of your mind? He reached out and gently touched her face. I know part of this is because of what happened with Bill, but I'll be with experienced people. I don't plan to face danger foolishly. I want to leave with a book that could get me on the morning show today and probably Oprah. They held each other in the middle of the bed, and she could faintly hear cars passing by on the highway. It was hard to imagine that there was a world full of problems outside this room, but it was true. After some time, he said, I shouldn't be away for more than a few weeks or maybe a couple of months, but no matter what, I won't be coming back here. Why not? You remember when we talked about you and Bill and how you needed closure? You pointed out that I seemed to be stuck on a past relationship. I thought about it, and you were right. It's been years, and I haven't had a serious relationship since then. Something is off. The silence lingered. When I return, and I will come back, I'm going to Palatka. I never got to say goodbye the right way. I was too hurt. I want to create a memorial in her name to help me find closure. After that, I'll look for someone I can truly love. He smiled at her. Please don't say anything. We're friends, and that's all we are to each other. But I want more. I want what I once had. I'll build a memorial that says, Here lies a most beautiful lady. And then I'll move forward with my life. They were lying together, and after a while she said, Could you turn off the lights? I've changed my mind. Is it okay if I stay the night? As they lay in the dark and she felt him drift into sleep, she wondered how things had come to this. She had always drawn men to her without trying. Now, the man she had cared for deeply was in another bed. The man she had left her husband for was far away, and her best friend was preparing to go to a place that held risks. In the quiet, she quietly wept for everything she had lost, and for what she feared she might lose next.
Hey there, boys and girls. I am the story guy. Thanks for listening. The story doesn't end here. There's more to uncover, more secrets to expose, and more crazy stuff to share on the way. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. We're just getting started.